All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin,
Here.
Counselor Meredith,
Here.
Counselor Stennett,
Here.
Mayor Soulsby.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so we have some presentations tonight. We're going to start with South Lane Fire and Rescue. Corey Chase.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've asked Chief Wooten and his team to show up tonight and talk to you guys a little bit about a recent acquisition that we made for some AED devices. And so it's a partnership that we've kind of built over the last year that I've been here. Chief Wooten and I have been talking about a lot of things, and we get a lot of great support and teamwork from the South Lane Fire District. So I would like to introduce Chief John Wooten.
Thanks, Chief. Mayor, councilors, staff, and all of our citizens here. I'm happy to announce that, well, let me lead in a little bit. It's no secret that we're extremely busy, and it's no secret that the police officers are extremely busy. But often in town, they arrive to an emergency in advance of our medic unit or our fire engines arriving. One such call a couple years ago, for which I decorated a few officers here, as well as Deputy Chief Baird and some of our staff, for a cardiac arrest call, where they then stayed and finished a concrete pour for the family. A result of that was a realization that we needed to get some better capability in town, especially for our first responders, and then upriver for our new fire district up there, Row River. I created a program called the First Responder AED program, reached out to the Woodard family. They were very generous. They gave us a grant of $15,000, for which we purchased 15 AEDs. We upgraded some of ours. We sent some upriver, and we provided 6 to the police department. It was through the generosity of that grant that we were able to now have the capability in the city for both the medics, the firefighters, and the police officers who show up on scene. It doesn't matter who's there first in a cardiac arrest. We have just minutes to get the heart restarted to save the brain. And I believe that this program brought that capability one step closer to reaching the national goals. So I'm happy to present the 6 AEDs. They must be deployed because I don't see them here, which is good. We brought them down a while back and I gave them to the chief. This program actually came about when interim Chief Groff was here, and we had talked about it, and it took a while to get it done, but I'm happy on behalf of South Lane County Fire and Rescue and the Woodard family to present those AEDs and that capability to the officers.
Thank you so much, Chief, for all your effort in this.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right. Rain Catalyst Annual Report. Mike Sauerwein.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so good evening, City
Maybe
Council.
bring it a little closer.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Okay, good evening, City Councilors and Mayor, and Mike Sauerwein. Thank you all for having me today. It's my pleasure to give an update to you on behalf of Rain Catalyst for the work we've been doing to improve the entrepreneurial ecosystem this past fiscal year in Cottage Grove. So my name is Ellen Mole, and I'm one of 2 Lane County Venture Catalysts with RAIN. For those of you who don't know me in the audience, RAIN stands for Regional Accelerator and Innovation Network. We are a 501c3 nonprofit funded by the cities we serve, counties, USDA, and other private funders to support the work we're doing alongside entrepreneurs. RAIN essentially exists to reduce barriers to entrepreneurship and innovation for underrepresented populations and communities. Rain's mission is to partner with communities to catalyze inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems connect entrepreneurs to resources, including overlooked entrepreneurs, and contribute to the creation of prosperous economies. I have personally had the pleasure of serving entrepreneurs in Cottage Grove since September of 2022, almost 2 years now. I was September 1st, I think was the first day. So I want to kick off my update by saying that the past 2 years have been an incredible experience for me, and I'm grateful to be able to serve our local business community. I appreciate you all for our partnership and for inviting us in to work in the community. In my position, I've gotten to know many entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, storefront business owners, farmers, and creative individuals. Additionally, I've had the pleasure of getting to know and collaborating with numerous community resource partners like the Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Development Center, South Valley Farmers Market, to name a few. In front of you is a copy of our July 2023 to June 2024 report that I've prepared. Within the report, you'll see an overview of events and activities we've participated in each month, along with the number of entrepreneurs individually helped one-on-one outside of those events. This doesn't include things like bumping into people in the grocery store and offering support whenever I can, or responding to people on Facebook when they're needing support. You'll also find outreach activities and community events I've attended for sole purpose of assisting businesses and helping spread the word about our free services. From July to December 2023, I led various initiatives supporting local entrepreneurs and businesses through regular networking events, planning sessions, and workshops. Key efforts included hosting multiple entrepreneur meetups, productive work sessions, and holiday market vendor boot camps, which provided valuable resources and guidance to help businesses grow and thrive. Throughout this period, I played a central role in the Business Plan Challenge by actively participated in Chamber of Commerce events, offering ongoing outreach and support. Additionally, I provided one-on-one assistance to numerous entrepreneurs outside of these events, helping to address specific business needs and challenges. The focus remained on fostering connections, sharing resources, and preparing businesses for opportunities like crowdfunding and holiday markets. This engagement strengthened the local business ecosystem, supporting over 20 entrepreneurs across various platforms. Since January of this year, Rain Catalyst has made substantial progress in strengthening the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We hosted a diverse range of educational workshops, networking events, and community outreach activities like presenting at the Lions Club, Cottage Grove Chamber Breakfast Club, and Rotary that have all increased awareness. This period saw a rise in attendance at our monthly events with consistent participation, demonstrating the strong trust-based relationships we've cultivated within the local business community. This period also saw a rise in co-hosted workshops with the Chamber of Commerce, who have proved over and over to be a supportive and outstanding community partner for Rain. In January, you'll see in this report that we made a shift away from productive co-working sessions due to a lower attendance and started the entrepreneurial coffee conversations at one of our new businesses, Pour 818. We host these once a month, and they came out of a need for more small group mentoring and networking. In January and February, we saw only 5 participants at this event. I know it sounds small, but in March, we saw 6, and in April, our numbers doubled with 12. So the numbers have grown and awareness is continuing to rise. It's well received, just like our monthly meetings in the evening. Notably, the increased engagement has had a direct impact on how entrepreneurs direct with our resources. For example, the demand for one-on-one meetings has decreased as more entrepreneurs are finding the support and answers they need in group settings. Other events which have seen consistent attendance figures, such as the entrepreneurial coffee conversations and entrepreneur meetups, serve as vital platforms for resource sharing, peer support, and networking. The metrics above from this period reflect our success. We've maintained consistent attendance, and our educational initiatives have been well received with workshops like Destination Creation and the Business Plan Challenge and Pitch Class, drawing significant participation. Additionally, the involvement from a local business in Rain's Spring Tech Accelerator highlights our reach and impact. Following the 2024 Spring Tech Accelerator, Brian Brown of Roost Web Strategies said, Rain Catalyst is always able to bring together exceptional resources and present them to entrepreneurs that wouldn't otherwise be easy for them to track down and meet. The mentors and guest speakers they're able to bring to the events always have a unique perspective and provide experiences to draw on to help business owners on their journeys with their businesses. Another testimony I'd like to share is from Brianna Shade, an entrepreneur who recently was a finalist at the Business Plan Challenge. She stated, RAIN has been a wonderful resource for me and my business. With regular meetings, I have networked with some amazing people who have given me ideas for vending my handcrafted wares locally, ways to expand my membership, and other inspiration for improving my business. I even learned how to put together a business plan and pitch my business to local investors because of RAIN. But it isn't just the practical business strategies. RAIN has also been a source of camaraderie and moral support from fellow entrepreneurs who understand exactly the struggles I'm going through. And that's invaluable. One final testimonial I'd like to share is from a newer RAIN entrepreneur named Jason Miller. Jason states, I'm the sole proprietor of a small business based out of Cottage Grove named J. Miller Custom Cues. I filed with the state of Oregon in February, and I'm still in my infancy. I build and sell custom pool cues to local, national, and international clients via social media outlets and a website currently being rebuilt. I was introduced to RAIN through an online link seen by my wife on social media. I attended a first meeting with Ellen and the local group of entrepreneurs in the late spring of this year. Besides the local interbusiness networking, I have gained more insight into online marketing, startup loan and grant applications, and reconciling business expenses, just to name a few. Group meetings provide a great environment, exchanging ideas and resources with other local entrepreneurs who struggle with the basic issues found in every small business, finding clients, marketing your business, and being a part of the local commerce community. Classes and presentations by local professionals offer insight on how to make successful businesses run smoothly. The pre-scheduled materials presentations allow the attendees to pick up and choose one or all of the dates that will most help them with their business goals based on what they need, if they need an introduction or extra help with. One-on-one meetings provide us with more detailed and pertinent assistance with our specific questions and or concerns. The amazing venture catalyst, Ellen Mole, along with her team, has been instrumental in helping us with professional contacts, invaluable insights, and even client introductions. The fact that most new small businesses have limited financial resources to pay these kinds of meetings, classes, and counseling makes these interactions particularly valuable to all of us. Thank you all again so much for having me today and allowing me to serve your community. As we move forward, we're committed to building on these successes, continuing to empower Cottage Grove's entrepreneurs and fostering sustained economic growth in our community. If there's anything you would like to see from RAIN, please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. You know where my email is at. You can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat and hear your feedback. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Helen. We have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here, Ellen.
Thank you.
Was excited to see the entrepreneurial spirit
Yeah.
supported here in Cottage Grove. And I appreciate that you highlighted a couple of the entrepreneurs here locally. In your 2 years here, what is exciting you about what you're seeing here in Cottage Grove? What do you view as opportunities for improvement that could take Cottage Grove and those coming up through the program up to the next level? And you know, if you have any insight onto our community as well, and how we could best support our local entrepreneurs, I'd love to hear that.
Okay, thank you very much. So my 2 years here, I've done a lot, obviously, with a lot of startups. There are barriers that go with becoming a startup, one of those being financial resources. So everyone's looking for money. A lot of times people come to me and they're like, hey, Ellen, where are the grants? Why can't I get it? The money's there, right? And a lot of times I have to educate people on where those grants are actually going. I do think that's something interesting that the city of Veneta is doing. They are doing a small business grant for people that are, I think, moving into storefronts. I'd have to look more into that, but I could. And one of those things is reducing the barrier to actually move into a storefront. The cost of storefront space is outrageous. I think the economy is really hindering people from moving into spaces and out of their homes. So I think that's something that we could improve on. I would love to see our downtown businesses thrive. And yeah, I'd love them to be safe as well. So I want them to be able to support themselves, be safe in the community, and just have those resources to continue growing. Yeah. Does that help?
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Ellen.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, items to be added to the agenda. We had a request from council to add one security to the agenda, so I'd like to do that now. And we'd love to hear from our security company now.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Just introduce Spencer Peck and let you guys introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you're doing for the city and your background and experience your company.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be a part of your community. It was requested we come give you a little bit of an insight into who we are and what we do, and most recently what we've done with the city of Cottage Grove. I'll just start off by saying that One Security is just simply that, a security company that provides almost exclusively unarmed security to both private, but most importantly, municipal, state, and federal government agencies and those kinds of contracts. We've worked very hard to build a company that I believe is a bit antithesis of what the current security models look like in our community. We did that with some very specific thinking based on some very specific background of the owners here today. Simply put, before I introduce my business partner, is One Security tries to bring human solutions to human problems. We believe that security has long too been associated with law enforcement in a parapolice role, where they act upon the rule of law or perceived authority, when rather we believe that all human beings, regardless of their status or place in our communities, need to be engaged as such, as human beings. We try to solve human problems with human solutions. And I'll dive a little bit into that and how we get there, but I think it's important for you to learn a little bit about the two owners standing before you today and our background, which led to who we are and ultimately the services we provide for our clients. So I'll introduce my business partner, Spencer.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Spencer. I'm the CEO of One Security, one of the part owners. My background's mainly in the business side. So I've got a master's in business from the University of Oregon, specializing in finance securities analysis. So really my job is the business operations side. When we have things like this that come up, Sean and I try to get involved and ensure that we have the best quality people to really do what the city is looking for. I also have a military background. I was in the Marine Corps Infantry for 5 years, done multiple combat deployments. Most of my time was spent in Afghanistan, but I've been all over the world. Again, my true value though is the business side of things. Our value proposition as a security company is not militaristic. It's not, hey, I was a scout sniper. I can tell you I can blow buildings up and shoot people. I can't talk to people, right? And that's really the value of what One Security does. And it's the 15 years of law enforcement that is sitting next to me of true engaging people as humans. So that's our Chief Operating Officer, Sean. He really leads the charge and training our guys and all of the things that he'll talk about. So I'll pass it back to him.
Yeah, I think it's important for you guys to get to see the two contrasting personalities. As you can see, Spencer loves talking to people and being in front of you here today. But it's extremely important that, I found somebody as a business partner who understands business and understands how to accomplish those missions and objectives. And he understood in me, somebody who had a background in law enforcement. So I did work here in Oregon as a police officer and a sheriff's deputy in multiple agencies in Oregon. And my multiple years on the road taught me a lot of things about what works and what doesn't work in conflict resolution. Law enforcement is rarely called on your best day. Rather, we're showing up at some of your worst moments and some of the worst times when you're in crisis. And I had a tremendous amount of success in law enforcement utilizing human approach. I understood the very simple fact that we're all just human beings, and the fact that I had a uniform or a badge or a gun didn't make me any better suited sometimes, but I was expected to be better suited. So I took that seriously. And, through all the years of success in law enforcement, when I came out of law enforcement to join Spencer in the business world and we started One Security, we looked at the landscape and we saw that it's a lot of uniform wearing, tack vest, blouse boots, lots of stuff on the belt, para police, the rent-a-cop moniker. And we thought very long and hard about what is missing in our communities. And my time in law enforcement, what I saw was the gap between the services cities could provide, counties and other government agencies, and the real felt impact of our societal, struggles that people are having. Primarily with crime and with, other issues related to our communities. And so instead of trying to come in and, and act like those, law enforcement personnel. We came in to be the intermediary between two groups of people. We serve as like a solutions-based, human-oriented organization that oftentimes is able to get the result that our clients want that other security agencies can't. That's what's, I believe, led to our great success in other cities. We work with the city of Eugene. We work with the city of Roseburg. We work with the city of Salem. We work with federal contracts up in Portland. And we've been able to win and attain those contracts because of our different approach. So we were very happy when the city reached out to us and asked us to be a part of this most recent project, and to be able to come in as an extra set of eyes and ears and well-trained people to be able to be a middleman, to be able to be on scene and be, high-level educators and informers and, compassionate and empathetic people who are able to help take a very complex situation and be in the middle. I mean, that's kind of what we specialize in. And I think that if anybody were to try to get to know us, that's what we'd want them to know about us and what we provide and what we do. And, I could talk for hours about the things that we care about and the things that I think are important to us, but I think that gives you enough of a snapshot, I believe, to at least open the door for any conversations or questions about us as a company or our involvement this most recent last weekend with the city.
Questions? Counselor Merryday.
Just a comment that I've observed you and your employees working with our clients, and I've been very impressed and pleased. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Stennett.
Thank you. You mentioned kind of a human approach to human solutions. Can you maybe unpack that a little more and tell us how you, maybe the hierarchy of decision-making that guides what you do? Or
That's a great question, and that's kind of alluding to why I think I could talk forever, so I'll be as brief as possible. There's words and buzzwords that are thrown around a lot in our today's society, like de-escalation, cooperative conflict resolution, trauma-informed care, all concepts and principles that are fantastic in and of themselves. But to your point exactly, it's how do those things culminate into a decision-making tree, into a level of training and confidence that people need to have in an elevated situation. And I think that it starts with our hiring practices, who we hire, the temperament and the personality of the people we hire. It's our internal in-house training that focuses on de-escalation. What are those tips and tricks that you utilize, from body language to word choice to tone and tenor? How do you effectively seek to inform rather than to manipulate compliance? It's really again, go back to those basic human interactions. One of my famous sayings I say is, would you want what you're giving someone else to be given to your elderly grandmother or to your small child, right? And not to say that we break people down into those groups, but we oftentimes don't use our harshest words or our most intense conversation with small children or somebody who's struggling at their elder years in life, right? We are at our best when talking to those people. And oftentimes it's just a reframing of employees' perspectives on how to approach people, and not to bring their own ego or their own agenda to the conversation, but rather to remain empathetic and outside of the right here in front of your face issues, but rather to look at the big picture and what are we here to accomplish and what are the missions and objectives that are of higher importance, rather than getting lost in the day-to-day name calling or raised emotions or intense body language, but rather to set those aside and step into a new role, and one that leads with example and humility and empathy.
can I do a couple more? Thank you. You mentioned de-escalation a number of times. Would you say that's your main, I don't know, functions, a bad word, but.
I believe it's a primary function of what we do. I mean, we're there when everything goes well, we're just there, right? But it's when somebody's upset or when somebody doesn't agree or somebody has an opinion that's different than maybe the status that we're there to maintain. So if the status is don't be here, or please don't cross this line, or, you've had too much to drink, you please need to leave the event. If it's one of those instances where there's a status quo to maintain, de-escalation is probably the primary word that people associate with that, but it is multi-layered. But yeah, de-escalation, cooperative conflict resolution, finding a mutual agreement that each party can come to that still stays within the parameters or expectations of a client. Those are all challenging, and they require a lot of training and a lot of engagement and a lot of involvement with our employees. And so to answer your question, yes, I believe that's our primary role.
And has it been put into practice thus far in Cottage Grove? And
I
what's your
believe-
sense of how it's going? so
I
far?
believe so. I was out there personally for over half of the weekend. Spencer spent the entire weekend out there. We had other employees. You know, it would be hard for me to say, yes, we did great, because I believe we did great, but I would say it would be the testimony of those we interacted with, those from the city, those from the police department. I think those would be better suited to answer that question more concretely. I believe we did well. I'm happy with the service we provided and the level of information we transferred and communication we had. I believe that's how we were able to be successful. We had no incidents. Again, we don't take an enforcement action. We don't say can or can't, do or don't. We inform. And when informed decision makers choose to enter a place they're not supposed to be or do a thing they're not supposed to do, we then are great partners to pass information along to those that are in the place to make those decisions on behalf of the city.
Well, that was going to be my next one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You kind of differentiated yourself from law enforcement, but how do you see yourselves working with them?
Just as exactly like I just said, as a placeholder. You know, there's only so many bodies and only so many places that the police department can be, that city parks can be, public works can be, fire department can be. I mean, this is the function of private security, in my opinion, is to be a stopgap and a placeholder where certain entities, private or public, can't meet the need. We can be a high level placement. And so we can be in a place where law enforcement go handle higher priority calls. Parks Department can go work on other higher priority issues. And then when something doesn't maintain the status quo, we're there to engage those partners. And those partners trust that when we're engaging them, we've already gone through steps 1 through whatever to get a solution, rather than just a warm body who goes, oh, that person crossed the line, call the cops and be uninvolved. We're going to attempt to get compliance through cooperative conflict resolution and de-escalation. But if in the event we can't, is where we draw the line and we engage those partners whose job it is to do that.
Thank you.
Counselor Urban.
Mayor, thank you for being here. Are your employees stationed throughout the city limits, or are you focused on the overnight site currently? You're talking about informing, and so I just wonder if you guys are roaming around the parks and different areas, or if you're isolated to that one spot.
Yeah, great question. We've been currently isolated to the 2 camps that the city has been working on at 12th Street and Douglas Avenue. We've maintained 24-hour presence there up until today when the cleanup efforts began, and will continue to be utilized as the city deems us necessary in the future. But as of now, that's been our involvement only at those 2 locations. And again, only to be a presence to inform, educate, and maintain the status quo as the city's asked us to. And again, when that didn't happen, we engaged those partners to handle it.
I want to thank you for being here too, and also echo that I had a conversation with one of your employees and was very impressed with his demeanor, and he was very thorough at explaining what was going on, giving me a report on the situation and how many people had been there through the night, exactly what had happened, and he was very, very kind. And so I want to commend you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, one more question.
Well, I recognize Spencer from the racetrack, I believe. So I wonder how connected to the community you guys are as a company, and some of your employees. Are they residents here as well?
Yeah, we a lot of our residents are, or a lot of our employees are residents of where they're working. I'm a longtime resident of this area. I live in rural Lane County, more or less Crestwell, but I definitely consider this a part of my community. I definitely see this as my community, so definitely vested here. But yeah, we have a lot of employees who are here, and I'm sure you've seen me at Cottage Grove. I love the raceway.
Well, thank you for spending your evening with us. appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify whether they are a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of citizen comments. Michelle Thurston.
Thank you. I proudly live at Riverview Terrace, a Homes for Good senior and disabled affordable community, also known as the High Rise on the corner of Main and River Road. I've been a resident there for over 29 years. Over the last several months, we as residents of Riverview have been verbally and physically attacked. The grounds of our community have been trespassed against to take our plants, flowers, vegetables, and more. Every week that passes, the attacks have gotten bolder and scarier. These attacks and trespasses have not been committed by the unhoused, rather from people who drive by in their trucks and family cars. They are people who walk the river with their friends, partners, and children. We have been yelled at, screamed at, and cussed at. A couple of months ago, a man in a truck slowly drove by our building, cussing over our mere existence, and proceeded to throw a can of corn, nearly hitting a resident who was over 90 years old, waiting for a medical ride. We have been called scum, trash, waste of life. We have been told our building belongs to them because they pay for us. When we ask people to please not cut our flowers and take our vegetables that we have painstakingly grown as a community, we are again cussed out and told this stuff belongs to them, so they can do whatever they want. Insert expletives all through that. We have been told to get out. We don't want your kind here, and told, you know, when we get a real city council voted in, your days here are numbered. Your free ride will be gone. We don't want scum like you in our town. Let me tell you about this scum. We are human beings. We are a community. We have veterans. We have retired nurses, teachers, bus drivers, loggers, caregivers. We have residents who have struggled and live with disabilities, and some even addictions. Riverview is not perfect by any means, but then again, no community is. Our residents work tirelessly to make our apartment building a community. We are human. We look after each other. We are part of Cottage Grove. We shop, dine, attend events, seek medical care. We bring our family and friends to Cottage Grove for a day of shopping or dining in our city. Many of us volunteer countless hours within our city. We are your neighbors, and we deserve to be treated with basic human dignity. The increase in division within our city is undermining the essential values and respect of decency. When did a 73-year-old woman who spent her life raising a family and working in this city as a registered nurse, only to be diagnosed with cancer and lose almost everything she worked hard for because of medical costs, became public enemy number one? One of the duties as an elected official is to set the vision and guidance principles for our town. If that vision is one of exclusion, division, class bias, and mistrust, you are succeeding. What is happening to the residents of Riverview Terrace is just a snapshot of what is happening in Cottage Grove. We as a town, and you as our elected representatives, must do better. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members.
Thank you. Michael Bork.
Good evening. My name is Mike Bork. I live at 310 North Douglas. I'm part of Ward 2. After that last presentation, we've made a lot of changes in the last couple of weeks, and I think it's the step in the right direction, but there's a long ways to go. And with any plan that goes forward, there's a lot of identities that need to be, I guess, conversed with, and so we can go forward and help some of the residents that we've unhoused from what they thought was their house on those camps. I mean, I talked to a lot of them this past weekend, and a lot of them, they thought that ground was theirs. They've been there for 2 years and they look at it as their ground. And we need to do a better job of helping them transition to wherever they choose to go. And one of the biggest things, and these are just ideas that I sort of brainstormed through, was Springfield has cahoots and things of that nature. Our police force is not equipped to handle a lot of the mentally unstable that we have out in the community. And that's a good resource or something like that. I know Lane County has one, but the time that it's open or available is very short. Another one is taking a look at our true residents that we have that are unhoused and how we can help them. We need to have some paths because a lot of these, they're lost right now. They don't know what to do. They've been used to staying at one spot, sleeping during the day, going out at night, and some of them work. And those are the ones we really need to help because they're really residents here. And that's what I'd like to see the next step. I mean, just doing one thing isn't the answer. It's doing several things to move the needle in the right direction. And that's what I'd like to see. I'll have to give my hats off to the security people. I talked to them over the weekend, at night, and they did a great job with de-escalation, talking to the individuals, telling them, hey, this is what happened. This is why, blah, blah, blah. And for the most part, it was very well recepted and there wasn't too many issues out there. There's always some of those individuals that have problems, but you're going to have that no matter what. It doesn't matter if you go there or at a bar here in town too. So that's, I was grateful for the city picking them up and doing that. That was a step in the right direction. But I think going forward is, we have to come up with a whole plan and be able to help the ones that really want to be helped so we can get them to the next step so they can become, residents of Cottage Grove and be able to live and work here. Thank you.
Jeff Arkins.
Mayor, esteemed council members, I live over by the fire station. I'm not sure what ward that is, but that's where I live. It's 3. Thank you very much, Councilman. So what we've got is I want to just say that so far everything's going in the right direction. It's not going to happen overnight. It will probably take months to kind of get things in the right direction, but it's all going in the right direction. I haven't seen too many people walking around town. I haven't seen our parks besieged with anybody. And that's a good thing because, it plays havoc on the kids that are still out for summer, having to see that. I think that everything is, we have a few issues, of course, the North 99 camp and what people hang out over at the ponds. We've got people pooping in or near the rivers there, or the tributaries that might be there. And of course, that's a federal offense because it's part of the Clean Water Act. So, it's just, I'm sure you may have, or somebody's brought it to your attention. And those camps that I just mentioned are good violations of the Clean Water Act. We got to sometimes drink out of that water or tube in that water or fish in that water, so. I drove by there today at the North 99 camp. And of course, there's this sign, I'm sure people have seen it. You trespass beyond this point, you will be shot. No trespassing, violators will be shot, so that's kind of a, that's not a good thing for sure. I also think that as far as the homeless that may have some sort of an income, they probably should be assessed some way, a small amount of stipend to help clean up the mess that they've created. Why should it be all on the taxpayers? Also, they evidently don't need a place to stay in. I haven't seen hardly anybody take up residence for the night at the dog park. I can go by to Safeway at 9:30 at night for something, and you know, it's still late and I don't see any real activity there. So I like the fact, and this is posted but not verified, that Heather Boyce has been in contact with LCSO and about getting the North 99 camp cleaned up. So that was on one of the What's Happening in Cottage Grove things. Haven't verified it, but so things are, if that's true, are going in the right direction as well. But an attaboy and an attagirl, you know, on the things that are in process right now. We've got to take Cottage Grove back. It's our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Art Lancaster.
Hey, I'm back. Like he said, things are turning. They're turning for the better. There was a lady that was on What's Going On in Cottage Grove here about a week ago. She lived in the Douglas camp with her kids. She actually has a job, and she can't get any assistance to get her kids out of these camps. Come on. Those are the people that are supposed to get help. They want to be out of these camps. They don't want to be stuck there, thrown in with the people that's their lifestyle. They want to live that way, let them live that way, but not here. But I'm hoping all the name calling and all that stuff ends, because we got a clean slate right now. And let's do it right this time. Listen to the constituents. You know what I'm talking about. Listen to the people of Cottage Grove. They've spoken loudly. It's time to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber Baylor.
Good evening, Amber Baylor. I'm in Ward 4. Mayor, councilors, good to see you. First off, I wanted to thank Mike Fleck, Chalice Savage, and Alex Dreher for their service. I know they're not here, but thank you. And it was a pleasure working with you on the Ad Hoc Street Committee and the Budget Committee. So I wish you all the best. Secondly, thank you, Mike, Faye, Teresa, and all the city staff for being willing to try something different. Dusk Till Dawn is not a solution to homelessness, but I appreciate the effort and the courage it took to try something the city hadn't tried before. I hope that the May work session isn't the last of its kind. The desire remains, I hope, for all of you and others in the community to find a workable solution to the homeless crisis. Next, as a private citizen and a former chair of the Ad Hoc Street Committee, I want to encourage the citizens of Cottage Grove to do your due diligence when making a decision on what you vote for the bond and the gas tax measures. Both, as a reminder, are in line with the committee's recommendation, and so are absolutely necessary to dig us out of the $35 million backlog of necessary road improvements to get to good roads. Please go back and review the committee meeting minutes and materials and watch the town hall on the topic. That's all available online. As a committee, we went through a lot of material, this binder, case in point, and we listened to a lot of, I guess, subject matter experts in the field, and our recommendations were based off of 10+ months of work. And we really put in the work to understand our situation and come up with some solid recommendations. A little perspective on the impact of the bond and gas tax. So as a homeowner, as being a member of a family of 4,
we'll be spending about $100 a year or just over $8 a month on the bond if it passes, and less than $8 a month for 2 vehicles for the gas tax. So just a little food for thought. Lastly, my last bit of food for thought is I want to share a couple proverbs. Upright citizens are good for a city and make it prosper, but the talk of the wicked tears it apart. Your kindness will reward you, but your cruelty will destroy you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Counselor Merriday.
Yes, so could I echo the words of our chair, Amber Baylor, who really had to crack the whip because we were a large committee. It was 8 citizens and 7 counselors. And we really did, if you see the size of that binder, went through a lot of options and had to chew on a lot of fat. And we were fortunate to have members of our committee that actually worked in road construction. So that was invaluable. We had the knowledge and wisdom of our public works director, Stuart, and consultant engineers. So it was a long and detailed process. And believe me, nobody wants to pay for anything. I get it. But as pointed out, the costs are fairly negligible for a real way to improve our roads. So I know chatter on the internet saying like, oh yeah, well, it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you want roads to improve, we need some help. So really consider that. On the many comments heard tonight, yes, it is a work in progress. We do have a lot to go, and I do want to see us continue our discussions as in the work session or forum, public forums, and all about helping those that need help regardless. So let's build on what we've got and continue moving forward for all Grovers. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on Ms. Thurston. That is, ironically, I got a letter this evening from someone else from Riverview Terrace, and I answered her back, but I received it probably 20 minutes before I had to leave. So it was a quick answer, something completely different. But that's the first I'm hearing of it. And I'm terribly sorry that you're going through that. And we'll look into that further. That's unacceptable. Very sorry. Public hearings, I see none. Consent agenda.
Move approval of the 2 items on the consent agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolutions and ordinances. First vote on an ordinance annexing a portion of Lot 4 of Double H Estates into the City of Cottage Grove, map TL 20-03-01-02200A1-24. Associate Planner Lenny Crow.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So Double H Investment Group LLC is the owner of the unaddressed 7.12 acre parcel located at the mentioned map and tax lot, which is partially located within Cottage Grove, the Cottage Grove urban growth boundary. Double H Investment Group LLC has applied for an expedited annexation of the eastern portion of land in the above referenced parcel that is located within the UGB, and it is approximately 17,831 square feet. The purpose of this annexation is to further develop the property under City of Cottage Grove jurisdiction. The annexed area will be added to parcel 1 of partition plat number P2019-P2897, which was annexed in 2023 via property line adjustment or master plan subdivision application to allow for larger lots in the future residential subdivision. Public notice was sent August 12th, 2024 to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, any affected special district, and any local organization that requested notification of the proposed annexation. They had 14 days to provide comments in writing or request a public hearing in writing as well. The deadline for the receipt of these requests was the end of the business day today, Monday, August 26, 2024. At the time this memo was created and as of right now, there were no written comments or requests for public hearings that were received. The section 18.04.040A through D provides this decision to approve an annexation shall be based on the findings of fact with respect to each of the criteria and standards in this section. And the proposed annexation meets all of that criteria. So staff's recommendation is that City Council holds the first vote on the draft ordinance in front of you. The ordinance was prepared and has been available for at least 1 week prior to this meeting. This ordinance could be adopted at one meeting, and staff recommends approval.
You have an ordinance number?
Ordinance number 3188.
Counselor Urban?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council hold the first vote on ordinance 3188.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? Counselor Urban?
Did I understand you say that we could pass this in one?
Correct. Yes, Council.
So would it be a different motion to try to pass it in one, or because the language was to hold the first vote, indicating there would be a second?
The motion could be simply to adopt ordinance number 3188.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion that the council and move that the council adopt ordinance 3188.
Agreed.
We have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Merriday,
Aye.
Counselor Stennett,
Aye.
Counselor Urban,
Aye.
Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Unanimous. Business from the City Council. Item A, Counselor Subcommittee Appointment for Planning Commission. City Manager, Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. We have a vacancy on the Planning Commission due to a resignation, and we have advertised that vacancy in local newspapers, social media, and the city's website. As has been the council's tradition, they appoint 3 of the members to serve on a subcommittee to interview applicants for the Planning Commission position. So council's request this evening would be that council do that, appoint 3 members to a subcommittee.
Do we have any volunteers? Anyone? Counselor Urban? I would do it. Oh, okay. So 3 of us.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Concerns from council? Counselor Urban?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I want to commend staff. I read the Friday update regarding the information going out to downtown businesses that were affected by vandalism and the call for them to reach out to the city to be able to potentially tap the facade grant funds for that purpose, or at least have that conversation. So I would encourage any businesses to do so. And that would be a reach out to Mr. Mongan or the contact. Okay. And also want to just give an update. Councilor Merriday kicked off our bingo event at Coast Ford Brewing on Sunday. So thank you to Tom Perkins at South Valley Athletics for sharing their bingo spot and equipment to do that. We were able to raise $272 more for the skate park process. I don't know what our grand total is right now, but with the YARG Foundation grant, I believe that puts us in the excess of $13,000. We have in excess of 80 handwritten letters of support from community members, kids and parents alike from our previous events. So we're hoping to use all of that and show a strong support that the city of Cottage Grove wants to really come behind the youth and the rest of the community in providing some beautiful facilities that can be accessed year round as an activity to do hard things and get better at them and have camaraderie and build community. So I also want to echo Mayor's comments on what we're hearing about what's going on at Riverview Terrace. That is not the community that we want to promote. We do our best to lead by example in treating each person as an individual with dignity and respect. And so I too I'm sorry to hear that, and we'll follow up to learn more and see what can be done there. I was able to have talk to Mr. Sauerwein just briefly. There was a concern about when it came to the interpretation of 3115, which is our state statute for providing reasonable accommodation for those experiencing homelessness in terms of reasonable from their perspective. One of the areas that isn't currently being addressed, and I hope to have additional conversations and as our situation progresses, address in some manner, are those that are working at night, and that the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Is not compatible with their work schedule. So so far it sounds like that we have not had anybody say, hey, I need a place to stay to be able to work at night, but it's not unreasonable to think that that would not be something that they would bring necessarily to our attention. So do want to keep that on the radar and find a solution for that going forward at some point. But just again, appreciation for making these changes, and I appreciate the comments from the community and recognizing that, this is not the end all be all. We have a lot of work to do as a community to come around and support. So I'm looking forward to working together with the community and hearing about ideas and figuring out how I can support that and how we as a council can do that. Yeah, so I think that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Merida.
Thank you, Mayor. For democracy really to work, there always has to be a choice, and there's nothing to say. This is nothing to say about any given candidate. No office should run unopposed, in my opinion. Democracy thrives when there's competition and scraping ideas up against each other, comparing ideas and visions. I can very well understand why folks would hesitate with the time commitment required for public office, with recent turmoil, with the fear of putting yourself out there. But please consider being willing to serve and step to the plate. Tomorrow is the last day to file, and we have currently, is the election certified? Okay, so we currently have 6 positions available, and tomorrow is the final day to file. So please, if you're thinking about serving the community in this way, get a packet from the city recorder, see what's involved, and get your paperwork in by 5 p.m. And in this note, I want to state that I'm intending to run for the office of mayor. Thank you.
Anyone else? I want to talk about also what happened in our downtown a number of days back, and what a heartbreak it is to see these businesses that are struggling to make ends meet. And a lot of them are mom and pops, and they're unfortunately have some deductibles to pay when with their insurance. It's not all covered like a lot of people believe it is. And so I want to thank Georgia with the Chamber of Commerce. She really rallied the troops to come out and collect some money for these businesses, and our city and our businesses downtown want to extend a huge thank you to her. I also wanted to bring up a little project that's very much in its infancy, but we're talking about it. And we were blessed with the mayor of the Dalles, Richard Mays, to come and share what he did in his community. And I found out about it at a mayor's conference where I had some long conversations with him, and it's called Wall Dogs. And it is a big mural fest that they put on. And I loved this idea. And in the Dalles, they had I want to say it was 200 artists from all over the world come in to their city in 4 days, and they did, I believe it was 11 murals. And I mean, if you go online and look at the amazing skill of these artists, you will be, I just could not believe the quality of the murals and the quality of the artists that they got. And the Wall Dogs have been doing this for years and years and years, and they do one city per year. And it is a big reunion for them. And the city welcomes them in, whoever they choose to host welcomes them in, and the city feeds them. They bring music out. They do this great big huge art festival for 4 days, and it is a pretty amazing event. And so we've already made contact with the Wall Dogs. We are really hopeful that we can bring them here and get that ball rolling, because I think we are really, really good candidates for it because of our strong historical with our mining and our logging community and all the movies that have been made here. We're just ripe for murals to be painted on our walls. So, you know, we've talked about redoing all the back alleys and, you know, lighting those up. So it's a completely different space for Cottage Grove. And I think it would be something that is really needed to kind of raise the momentum of, I guess, the unity for Cottage Grove, to some sort of a happiness event that we could bring. And so the city manager and director Stewart and Mr. Mongan all sat in, and yeah, it was a pretty exciting thing. And so hopefully it's something that we can bring to Cottage Grove. City department reports. Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening again, Your Honor, members of the council. In an effort to keep council appraised of projects, goals, and accomplishments throughout the city, we're asking each of our departments to present a report twice a year. And this evening, we'll be hearing from the police department, human resources, community services, the community center, and the finance and Middlefield golf course. So begin with police chief.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we were, as Mr. Sauerwein said, we've been asked to come and just provide some updates. And obviously there's a lot going on in the police department, and kind of what we've been dealing with, the biggest challenge that we've had to face in order to start moving forward and put some other pieces in place is really our staffing. It starts with the people that we have in our department, and it starts with having those positions filled. So I put together just a brief presentation tonight about how we staff our department and kind of where we've come. And it's hard to believe, but it's been almost a year since I started, just over 11 months. So what I did was go back and reflect on where we were when I started. And while it looks like we've made a lot of progress, there you'll also see where the way that we hire and train, that it's taken almost a year to start making an impact to the schedule. So if we can click to the next slide, and I did put, you can kind of click through that. There we go. So I tried to pull a bunch of numbers together, and I know Councilor Irvin, you'll appreciate this. And we've had conversations about numbers and statistics in the past. You and I kind of enjoy this kind of stuff. So this all makes sense to me. So if it doesn't make sense to you, please ask a question and I'm happy to answer it. But so when I started on September 11th, the department budget was set for 28 and a half FTE, which is full-time employees there that we had budgeted for. So 1 police chief, 2 captains, 13 police officers, and on down the line there you can see. But we had, when I started, we had 1 captain, and we had a vacancy that we had yet to fill. I held that vacancy open while I worked on trying to fill the roles of police officer and dispatcher. And you'll see later where we've been successful and where we have yet to succeed. So, but we filled that captain's position after the first of the year in 2024. So we were able to fill that spot. We had 4 vacancies, which left us with 9 officers on patrol. We had 3 sergeants. There was 1 current vacancy. We had 2 sergeants that were on a leave of absence, which left us with 0 sergeants to supervise the day-to-day and the street operations to have that first line supervision. As we sit today, we currently have 0 sergeants on the road. So the department was also budgeted for 6 dispatchers, and we had 2 vacancies. So we have 4 dispatchers to staff the 911 center 24/7. That's what our current staffing is as of today. We also have some support staff that do records, property and evidence, and then administrative tasks. And then we have a part-time community service officer, which helps support our police operations. So if you click there, it'll show you, and you can kind of click through it again. There we go. So the total budgeted number was 28.5, and the total vacancies were 8% or 8. So there's 28% vacancy roughly. So, but when you look it down at the total numbers there and the available staff, that's the number of staff that were actually available to do work because of, whether or not they were out on a leave or they were in training or whatnot. They don't count towards our schedule. So sometimes even when we look and say, okay, we're fully staffed, we're not fully staffed on the schedule. Those officers and those staff aren't available to help us with the day-to-day job. So the actual vacancy rate was 35. So if we click through again, since September, 2 police officers resigned. 1 went to work for the Eugene Police Department and 1 left the profession. We had another 1 dispatcher resigned who left the profession, went to work in a different industry. And 2 police sergeants that were on leave have since left the department. So we've hired 4 dispatchers. And even though we've hired 4, 2 of those resigned within the first month of being here. And we hired 1 of those dispatchers out of the 911 center to be a police officer. And that's so far shown to be a really good move on our part. He was somebody who worked for the 911 center, came in looking for a police officer position. And at the time there wasn't one available. So wanted to get his foot in the door and join this organization and put in some good years, a few good years with the dispatch center, and kind of got his feet wet, and recently graduated from the police academy last Friday, which is why I wasn't at the agenda session on Friday morning. I was up in Salem celebrating his graduation. So we're happy to get him back. We've since hired 5 police officers and the 1 captain, as I said, in January. So if we click through again and go through there, what our current staffing looks like is also in this fiscal year, if you'll remember, we reduced the police officer number by 1, and then we have 2.25 sergeant positions budgeted for this year. So instead of 3, we have 2 immediate openings to fill now, and 1 that we will hold open and fill that in the 3rd quarter of this fiscal year. So which is where we get that 2.25 from. So we do have 2 captains on. One of them oversees the administrative side of things, which is our training, investigations, professional standards, and then also supervises the South Lane 911 Center. And then we have another captain who oversees the police operations side of the house, the day-to-day patrol, K9, and the field training program. So we currently have 11 police officers. 1 of those positions is vacant. So we're budgeted at 12. We have 11 with 1 vacancy. But out of those positions, 2 at the police academy, 1 just graduated Friday. So we currently have 1 there, but one just graduated Friday. 1's in the field training program, which is 16 weeks long. And he's about halfway through that. So we have 1 detective that we took out of our police officer ranks because we were getting really far behind on some of our really important cases, and trying to investigate those from a patrol position is really challenging because of the time and energy that it takes to put into those cases, and sometimes leads us outside our jurisdiction, and also leads us through, just a lot of paperwork. So we were able to carve that position out. And so we currently have one detective, and she started back in June. There's been a couple of days where we've had to have her suit up and cover a patrol shift just because of our staffing levels. But she's made a huge impact already by taking some of that challenging workload and being able to start play some catch up with that because of the vacancy that we held and was there that I inherited. There was a significant caseload of cases that still needed to be investigated and that were still had workable leads and things that, so she's also not just taking on new cases. She inherited a significant caseload. So even though we have those positions, and that's currently what our staffing numbers look like, we right now we have 7 officers that are available to patrol right now. Those numbers are encouraging to me because we have those people on staff, and once we get them in the door, that's a huge step in the right direction for us. So as we bring them through the door and we get them through the academy and we get them through their training, we are getting them closer to being available to us on the schedule as well. So while we don't have any sergeant positions currently, we are we're moving forward with the process, with the hiring process and the recruitment process. And this Wednesday, I'm really optimistic about some interviews that we're doing. We have some good applicants, and we worked with our police guild and with Mr. Sauerwein, our city manager, and also with Mandy Beeler in HR to make sure we put something together that would be attractive to try to get some candidates in here to act as first line supervisors for us. So though that process will take place on this Wednesday. And so if we're able to do that, we'll still have a background and all of that kind of process. It'll take probably before we would see them. If we make a decision on Wednesday, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before we get them here. So, and then we currently are sitting at 4 dispatchers. We have 1 that is currently going through the background process right now, and we have several more applicants. So Mandy's currently working with Captain Soulard, and they'll be putting together another recruitment or interview process to interview some of those applicants to see if we can select another dispatcher to fill that out. So if you click through again, kind of the same numbers I did again. So even though you can see that last number there, the red number on the previous slide, a year ago it was 35, it's at 34. We've made significant progress. We've hired several people, but what actually truly counts to our staff as we sit right now, we're still just under what we were a year ago by 1%. So we're roughly in the same boat with a whole lot more hope and optimism to fill those positions sooner rather than later. So it's a challenge. It takes a lot of work to get where we are. So even though it looks like, on the schedule, we're still running fairly short staffed, we've made significant progress and we've got some folks in the door. It's just a matter of us getting them through the police academy, getting them trained, and then getting them out there on the street and then filling those sergeant positions and continuing to work through to get those dispatchers here. So, we click through again. So I wanted to throw this out there just so you all could see kind of what the requirements are and why we do what we do when we go through this significant hiring process. And there is an Oregon administrative rule. I cited it there, and it describes the minimum requirements that are established for employment as a law enforcement officer. So minimum 21 years of age, there has to be a background. In order for us to send them to the police academy, they have to take some sort of an academic proficiency test that we administer. We do that. We have a company that we work with called the National Testing Network. It's a great organization to work with. It's a great program for us to have because when folks go through and take those tests, we can have, it's a standardized test, and we can have our job openings posted on their website. And that actually allows them to see which departments are currently hiring or have openings, and they can choose who to submit their test scores through. So we get a larger applicant pool that way than we would if we just tried to, have people in and try to administer tests and do all of that stuff ourselves. So And when you, as you look at that, there's an exemption for four-year degree for consistency's sake. If we're hiring recruits in, I believe we're still making all of them take the test. We're not giving them that exemption, even though the state allows us, because we want to make sure that even though they have that four-year degree, that test that is administered to them helps ensure that they'll be successful at the academy. And so when we, Captain Soulard and I recently met with the executive team from the police academy. They were kind of out doing a tour and meeting different community stakeholders, law enforcement officials. We went to Roseburg and attended one of their meetings and asked some questions about success and failure when we're getting folks back to the academy or back from the academy, putting them on the street. One of the things we were seeing recruits struggle with was their report writing abilities and being able to put their ideas and thoughts on paper so it was presentable and prosecutable in court. And so there were some struggles there, but a lot of that is because of the challenges with hiring folks today. A lot of people were kind of lowering those standards. And so we've gone back and Mandy and I have talked about that, the need for us to pay close attention to that, because what we don't want to do is spend a lot of time and money to get really far into this process just to know that we may have shortcutted something and then, you know, we're going to be back to square one because we didn't set this person up for success. So we really want to make sure that we're screening that and paying attention to it on the front end. They also have to do a physical and medical screening, which kind of equates to a job task analysis, just making sure that they can actually physically perform the functions of the job. They have a hearing, vision test, cardiovascular and pulmonary, all of that stuff. And then there's a pre-employment psychological evaluation for recruit and lateral applicants. So everybody that comes into the department, whether they've been an officer for 2 years somewhere else and then they come and join this department, if you're leaving one agency now and going to another agency, the law now requires that everybody go through the psychological evaluation as part of the pre-hire, regardless of how long you've been in the profession. And yes, I did do that before you all hired me a year ago. So, and they said I was good to go. So after 20 plus years. So, but so the process here, when we look at, and there's some associated costs here, but we do the written test, the Oregon Physical Abilities Test. We have that administered to them as well. And then we do a panel interview and assessment. So once we have their written test scores and their physical ability test scores, and we show that they've met that threshold, we bring them in and they go through a comprehensive panel interview process where we ask them a lot of questions that are relevant to the job to kind of get an idea of how they would, you know, respond during certain situations and just kind of what their thought process is, you know, how analytical they are and how they assess different situations and things. So so we do that, and we have a scoring rubric that we use to make sure that we're fair and consistent across the board with how we evaluate their answers. One of the things that we implemented here that I had previously done at another agency was we've now started asking them to do a ride along. So once they do the interview, we have them come in and do a ride along with one of our police officers, or what we call a sit along with one of our dispatchers. And the reason we do that is because we've had one of the officers that left shortly after I got here had been here, oh gosh, what, 8 months maybe, was here for a short time and left and went to Eugene PD. Came to us from another agency, came to work here, decided that Cottage Grove wasn't the right fit, really wasn't what they were looking for, and then opted to go to work for Eugene PD. Two completely different agencies. And at my previous agency, working for the Port of Portland Police Department for 12 years, we would get applicants that would come through the door and they would have maybe in their mind what their job was going to look like. And it's not the same as working at the airport as it is working for North Precinct or East Precinct for the Portland Police Bureau. So same concept here. What we want is to introduce those folks into a real live environment. Come and ride with our officers. You've got this far in the testing process. We want you to go on a ride with our officers. We want you to see our town. We want you to see our community. And we want you to see what it's like a day in the life of working in a small town like Cottage Grove. And some of the things that we ask our officers to do are different than what you would see in a larger jurisdiction. So we want to get them as acclimated as possible to give them a real understanding of what that job looks like before we move into, as you'll see, spending a significant amount of money to get through the rest of this, right? And if at the end of that, if the ride along, they're like, oh, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. You know, I've watched CSI my whole life and I thought I was going to be, you know, like working in Vegas or something, right? So like, no, that's not how it really looks, right? So we want them to have that real world perspective. But after they do that and we make them the conditional offer and we move them forward, we put them through the background investigation. So when I got here and the background process that I went through, which was fortunate that I did that because I was able to see firsthand. And in fact, one of the first meetings I had with Mandy was, you know, we gotta do something different there. So I just thought there was a way we could do a very thorough background. We needed to be a little bit more efficient. There was a lot of redundancies in the work that I did. And one of my fears is that, you know, with a younger generation, they would get frustrated through the process and opt to go work somewhere else where it may be a little more, you know, streamlined than what we were doing. And I honestly sat at my kitchen table through part of this as I was doing it going, what am I doing? Like just the redundancy, like how many times do I need to provide the same information? That tends to frustrate people. So, and it frustrated me. So again, it was valuable that I experienced it firsthand. So we streamlined it. We're contracting with a new vendor who we think is providing us what we need. It's reduced our cost a little bit there as well. So we're able to save a little bit of money. Once the background investigation comes back, and this is when I say background investigation, this isn't like, hey, submit your criminal history check and your driving check and we just look at that. This is, we're going to go back and look at everything from when you were born until you're applying for us, right? And that's essentially that's what happens. And it's going through everything, including financial information. I mean, you provide stuff. I was pulling documents out that I hadn't looked at in 15 years. So but we do that to make sure that we're bringing people into the profession that, that are going to meet the high standards that are in place in Oregon and in our own organization. So once those investigations come back, I meet with each one of those candidates individually after I read the background investigation. If there's things that I may have more questions about or just some follow-up I want to do, I'll ask them about certain things in there. And it's really kind of a chance for me to have a one-on-one and get to know who these folks are. And again, have another, conversation with them about what it's like to work for us, what my expectations are of the department and what the community wants and needs out of their police officers. So after that, we move them on to a psychological evaluation and we contract with psychologists. There's a team, there's 2 of them up in Lake Oswego. They're very good at what they do. They have a significant number of the contracts throughout Oregon because they are very good at what they do. And for the cost, we get a really good product. And what I like about them is that we also have the opportunity, even though some of the stuff is kind of standardized in the questions that they ask and how they perform the evaluation, they also allow us to provide them feedback and to tell them some things that we think may be unique about our organization or about our community and kind of what we're looking for. And then they can do a little deeper dive in some of those areas as they're evaluating the prospective applicants. So, and they're very willing to meet with us. In fact, Mandy and I have had a couple of conversations with both of them on the time that I've been here, just to kind of go back and evaluate what we got, in an applicant or in an employee once they get here. So it's a constant evaluation process on our part as well. The last piece of that is the medical and drug screening. So once they pass all of that, then we bring them in the door. And if you click to the next slide, so now once we get them here, so for police officers, we provide their uniforms and equipment. And so we have to provide them with a ballistic vest and all of their uniforms. We get them a couple of short sleeve shirts, a couple of long sleeve shirts, and a couple pairs of pants. the stuff that we wear is not cheap. Even though we're able to buy from uniform supply stores, there's a few of them in Oregon. There's one in particular that we use. All of this stuff we have cooperative purchasing agreements, and we're piggybacking on contracts that other larger agencies. So we have the buying power of larger agencies, but still this stuff costs a lot of money. That $3,800 does not include their handgun or their patrol rifle, body worn camera, or taser. So those are things that we keep an inventory of. We have enough handguns to outfit a fully staffed police department, but if somebody leaves, that firearm gets checked back in, and we go through it, clean it, and it gets issued to another officer when we hire a replacement. And the same with the other equipment, with those hard pieces of equipment. So the officers do provide their own footwear. However, they do have a boot allowance that's contractually agreed to. They get a stipend every year. But a good pair of Danner boots now, if you buy the Danner patrol boots, are $400. Yeah, which I'll date myself. When I bought my first pair of Danners, they were $125. So they last a long time. So I'll tell you, when you get them resold and you're about 15, 16 years in, and you finally go to buy another pair and they're 4 times that much, there's a little bit of sticker shock, but that's about what they cost. So, and then for the dispatchers and the non-sworn staff, their uniforms and equipment, we buy them a pair of pants and the gray BDU pants, and then the polo shirts, and we outfit them for about $340 a piece. So click through there. So the onboarding process, once we get them through the door, we get them fully outfitted. They come in. One of the things that I implemented after I got here was a 2-week orientation phase. The reason we do that is because when we bring them in the door, a lot of times what would happen is we just throw them right in a car with a field training officer, and there's a lot of stuff that we need to do on the front end to get them ready to go out and do the job, and trying to piecemeal that in just is not very effective. So we don't just dump them in a car. We have them go through the law enforcement data system manual, which is how we actually run people when we pull somebody over and we run their driver's license. That is a monster chore. And so we have them work on that. They go through and acknowledge all of our policies and our policy management system. So they have to read all the policies and acknowledge that they've received them. And then there's work that they do onboarding with Mandy and HR. So they get sexual harassment in the workplace, bloodborne pathogens, all those things that we do for every employee that comes on board with the city. But we're able to get them through that more efficiently and effectively if we just have that 2-week orientation phase before we throw them into the field training. 16 weeks is about the baseline for a field training program, for them to work through those phases and to go through the field training and evaluation manual. And there's a pretty extensive manual with a bunch of performance objectives and things that they have to accomplish, as well as some written tests and things like that. And then every day they're evaluated by their field training officer with what we call daily observation reports. And so all of those scores now, we have a software program that we use that gives us continual feedback. So I can log in at any time now without having to go back and comb through sheets and sheets of paper. I can just pull it up and get a snapshot view of how that officer is doing in the program. And I can also kind of see where their scores are averaging out. If I want to, I can pull some different reports from there. And if they're scoring consistently low in one category, it's going to show me that. And then it gives us an opportunity to circle back with the recruit and with the officer to find out if there's something we can do to provide, maybe some better training opportunities, or if we can focus on things. So it really helps us guide the training and to make sure that once we're this far into it, we're going to do everything we can to make sure we're successful at this point. So on top of that, they go to the police academy for 16 weeks under the new model that they're doing there. They're taking some time off for holidays. They're taking breaks throughout the year for in-service, much like you'd see in the public education sector, where they're giving in-service days for staff. So right now we have an officer who's about 3/4 of a way through the academy, and he's got a 2-week break. So he's back here for 2 weeks, and then he's got to go back and finish 5 more weeks of training. So he's not quite done yet. So that can stretch that total time out to almost 20 weeks. We've had some of them go 20 weeks, and we kind of gave a little pushback and when we had an opportunity to speak with the folks from the academy, and they understand that that's a challenge for a lot of agencies, even larger agencies. It just sets their training program back. So they're trying to keep that so it's no more than about 18. So But with our current officer, he'll be gone for 18 weeks total to the academy or to that training time. From there, basically from the time we get somebody in the door, best case scenario, it's going to be 8 to 9 months from the day we hire them until they can work as a solo police officer. And as you can see, I mean, it's 16 weeks and 16 weeks. So that's 8 months, and then 2 weeks of orientation is 8.5 months. So we're really right at that 9-month period, as long as everything just goes perfect. So so it's a challenge to get them through the door. So you can see why, as much progress as we've made, and Mandy and I mean, we talk several times a week, and we have been having ongoing conversations and hiring processes and working on recruitment nonstop since I walked in the door. And we're starting now to kind of realize some of the the efforts that we put into this. So we're starting to see some successes there, but it does take a while for that to get there. So that's it on the hiring front and kind of where we're at and why we are where we are and how we got there. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Counselor Irvin.
I don't want to dominate the whole thing. Okay, question 1.
Yeah.
Can you give us the status on the administrative leave that are we through all?
We currently have no officers on
We have no
administrative
officers
leave.
on.
So
Thank you.
yeah.
Can you speak to the state of the training of officers beyond the onboarding process, the ongoing training and the equipment? And maybe what is your end goal, and where do we stack up in relation to that?
So with our field training program, we're in an okay place. One of the things that we struggle with right now is that we have one officer that I think has 13 years of law enforcement experience. After him, the next senior officer in our department has 3 years experience. So we have new guys training new guys kind of thing. So, but I will say, I was a police officer for 1 year when my captain walked in and said, "Hey, guess what? We're sending you to the FTO school next week." So I was on for a year, and then I was training new recruits. That's kind of the reality of a small department. I feel like the folks that we have as field training officers are doing a really good job. They're some of our best and brightest, and they're the future of the department. So we're okay there. As far as the quality of training we're able to provide the recruits. The one area that we struggled in the previous year was that because our staffing levels were so low, the challenge for us is meeting the minimum requirements to maintain our basic certification and to meet that 3-year training cycle that's established by DPSST. Part of what Captain Soulard is doing is working on what I've asked him to do is kind of just take a look and take the lead on our training program and put together kind of like a long-term vision. So look at what a 5-year term or 5-year training plan would look like. Some big ticket items that we want to check off, and then also look at what we can do annually to make sure we're getting our in-service hours in. So one of the things we have at our disposal is a program called Police One, which is a virtual online training academy. And so what we've done is Captain Soulard and Brooke Crow, our administrative assistant, we have training that we offer virtually, which it's good training. But it's only one piece of it. We are able to get 1 to 2 hours a month. So at the end of the year, everybody's going to get roughly 20 to 24 hours of training just from doing those monthly online classes. But where we've struggled is to get out to the range and train with our firearms. So we've been able to get kind of up to speed. We've got everybody qualified on their handgun and their rifle, and not just go out and do a rush job with the qualification. One of the things that I challenge the team with doing is putting on some very meaningful training in addition to the qualification. So instead of just showing up and qualify, we're going to stay out there now that we're on the range, and we're going to be there for another 2, 3, 4 hours and go through some things that are going to really, kind of test us, push us outside our comfort zone, not just kind of stand in the line and shoot at a paper target, but some real world scenario based training. And that's more of what we need to do, not just with our handguns, but with other stuff. We need to be working through scenario based training to deal with de-escalation tactics and things like that. We need to be working on our defensive tactic skills, how to protect ourselves out on the street. We need to make sure that we're getting our research on our taser and things like that. So that's been a challenge in the first year. We've kind of started to turn that corner and we're seeing some progress there. So we're able to get some more training going, which I think is just going to get better as we staff up. So that was part of it. Did that answer the question about the training? Okay.
Yeah, I think it does pretty well. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm interested to know what the department's position is in relation to the modifications of Measure 110 and the approach, the criminal justice approach, deflection. Does that come down from the county? What's the position of City of Cottage Grove's Police Department when it comes to enforcement?
Yeah, so it's the county's role to administer deflection, right? So with Measure 110, the reform is the recriminalization, if you will, of the hard drugs that were criminalized or decriminalized under Measure 110. So what resulted from this recent change is that hard drugs and possession of those controlled substances is now what's called an unclassified misdemeanor, which defaults to an A misdemeanor unless a specific jurisdiction chooses to classify it something different. So, which I don't know that any jurisdiction is doing that. So it essentially defaults to Class A misdemeanor. So I just met with our district attorney last week. And in fact, invited him to come here and give a presentation to all of you. So, and he said he would be happy to do that. I know we tentatively have him on a future agenda. We're going to see if we can get him here in October. He told me his schedule will be fairly flexible and that he would love the opportunity to come to our community because he does want to get out into all areas of Lane County and let folks know what that's going to look like because it is being administered at a county level. So for us, what does that mean? The deflection program is not going to be ready until October 1. That's kind of their goal. September 1, these changes go into effect. So starting September 1, if say we encounter somebody, I'll give you an example. If we arrest somebody for shoplifting from Walmart, as we take them into custody, we discover that there's, a bag of methamphetamine in their pocket. We now can charge them criminally with that. And because these cases are being handled by the county, what we will do is those folks can be booked into the county jail and the charges for that case will be sent to the district attorney's office for prosecution. So what they've asked us to do is to keep all of those cases together. So instead of trying to piece them off and say, well, the drug case will go to the DA, but then we'll keep the shoplift at our muni court, however we do that. If there's the drug nexus to that and we're going to arrest for that possession of the controlled substance, we'll package the entire case. The entire case will go to the district attorney's office for prosecution because that's going to help drive what they ultimately end up doing. They're going to see who's eligible for this deflection program, and they'll guide those folks into deflection that they think will be successful or that are ready to take on treatment or something else. But they'll also take on and review kind of the totality of what the incident was as well and try to decide whether or not they're actually a good candidate for deflection. So that's one of the reasons why they want to bring all the charges together in a single incident, especially if they start to see repeat offenders. They want to be able to look at the patterns and things like that to try to make a determination. But
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Does that become then the county's discretion, or I guess the DA's discretion to which charges to go after? I guess there's a built-in concern for me there. If you don't keep some of the accountability local, and we hear that the criminal justice path is the most expensive, and so it's being highly encouraged to deflect.
Right.
I'm concerned that there won't be any accountability for the theft charge in your hypothetical.
Ultimately, it will be up to them. But again, it will be, they'll use the same criteria that our prosecutor would in determining what the best path forward is with prosecution. So whether that be to come to some sort of plea agreement, if somebody is eligible to go into deflection, that could be part of it. And I think at the end of the day, if they are a good candidate for deflection, that's going to be the ultimate goal. If they're not, then we just prosecute those charges. We take the whole case and we move forward with it. So, and I'll defer a little bit to that, to the district attorney, because he'll be able to speak more about what those cases are going to look like and what their intake process will look like and what they're going to prosecute and how they're going to move forward with that. But what my questions, because I've had similar questions about what that's going to look like, as have the other chiefs and the sheriff. But we have been at the table having these meetings, and we've been invited to have these conversations. So whether it's Cottage Grove, Coburg, Florence, Oak Ridge, there's a number of small agencies in Lane County. In fact, there's more than there are the big ones, right? So there's, you have Eugene, you have Springfield, and then you have all of these other similar jurisdictions. And we have all those same questions. And so we've been asking, similar questions. And so they understand where we're coming from and the importance of that in our communities, because Cottage Grove is not unlike Junction City or Oak Ridge and those other communities that I named off as well. We're experiencing these things. And I think all of us, not just the police departments, but our communities want to see there be a level of accountability for that. I think this gets us much closer to that, because as we were talking about some of this with our inexperienced but energetic staff, we were starting to realize that what I did early on in my career in making arrests for drug possession cases and things like that, that's not their reality. They've never done that before. So now we're going to be talking to them about investigating some of these things at a street level and how to put these cases together so they can move forward for prosecution, or for the DA to make an educated decision on whether or not they should go to deflection. So
package question. This last question gets to one. I just want to start by commending you and your department for what we see in terms of community relations, being present in the community, holding coffee with a cop, the frequent posts that give updates on the stats of what's going on in the community, the rollout of the camera registration program, which I want to make sure everyone's aware of.
We love that program. So yeah, it could be hugely beneficial to us. Thank you for mentioning that.
Accessible through the city's website, a link, I believe, and My PD Connect.
Yeah.
I was just wanting to give the opportunity to speak to those things as well. What's on the horizon with Neighborhood Watch kind of programs? I know that's been is still one of the goals, the council's goals, to see that stood up. I also wonder if cop stops are a thing that would be useful here. I know they have them up in Eugene with the Eugene PD, where local businesses or churches can set aside an office space where police can come and write their reports and get out of the heat.
Yeah.
Is that something that would be useful? I'm wondering how we can engage.
I think our town is pretty small square mileage wise. I mean, I like that idea. I don't know that it benefits a lot in a small town, just geographically small like Cottage Grove, because we are close enough to the office. But one of the things that that we talk about, and I'll give you an example, which I thought was just such a great idea by one of our officers. We deal with the theft of the shopping carts, and so rather than coming back to the police department to write his police reports, I was driving out to get gas at Public Works, and he had pulled in and backed in on the other side of the gate there, and had his computer open and was typing his reports and just kind of keeping an eye on the parking lot at the same time, right? And we have a PA system, so we can talk over the loudspeaker out of the grill. And he saw a couple people, trying to take the shopping carts off the Safeway lot. And he very kindly and professionally reminded them that that was not acceptable. So that's the kind of stuff that, to your point, having the officers out in the community is really important. And we do have the ability to do that by working, on our computers and things like that. One of the things that I've talked to the school district about is, the fact that because of how we're staffed this year, not being able to fill that school resource officer position, but having that office still available to us at the high school My plan moving into this year is to encourage our officers to do exactly what you're talking about, which is if you're out and about and you're down a couple of reports, instead of coming back to the office here at the PD to write your reports, pop into the, into the high school, even if it's just a chance for you to be seen by the administrative staff in the front office there. They may have a couple of questions. It may generate some conversation. And then it also gives us some visibility. We're parking a police car in the front of the high school. We can walk in there. We have the office space there already. We can have a laptop computer in there. And I've told Mr. Harrington at the high school that it's my intent this year that I may even grab my laptop and go and pop in there for a little while and just kind of hang out, and then be able to be there at the school during lunch or something like that. It generates a lot of good conversation. So yeah, there's things like that we're looking at. We have looked at the volunteers and police services. I have some examples of what we need to do for a training manual. We still need to put together kind of what that process looks like to hire people. We'll have to associate the cost with the background, which we just looked at as extremely expensive to do those background investigations. But we'll look at all of that. And then one of the things that we're getting ready to launch, and you may have heard about the Lane County Mobile Crisis Team. We actually have partnered with Lane County Mental Health or Lane County Behavioral Health. South Lane Mobile Crisis, they have 2 people hired. We entered into a facility use agreement so we can share space with them. And so we've actually cleared a little bit of desk space back in our report writing area. And we have 2 folks that are going through the training right now. We've got them fingerprinted and CJIS cleared so they can enter and use our building as they need. And then also the intent behind that is that they're here to start forming that partnership with our police officers. So when we go to those calls of folks in mental health crisis, that we're able to have something there other than the police to just continue to show up and day after day to the same things. We're hoping to have a partnership with them to be able to respond to folks in mental health crisis. So that's something that is not costing us anything. So we were able to enter into that and get that agreement in place and build that partnership and that relationship. And it's something at my previous agency that I was working on. And before I left, we were contracting with a private entity. And it was a significant cost to the organization to do that. We've been able to accomplish that at no cost to the citizens. So just because we're building partnerships and trying to think creatively on how we can address some of these issues that our officers may not be best equipped to handle or trained to deal with. So yeah. Did I answer him? What's that?
Role.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question because I did pull that out of patrol, right? I mean, I had to fill that position. And so some people would say, well, why would you do that when your numbers are so low? But when I prepare the annual report this year, I'll have numbers in there again about child abuse cases that come in, which is the big one that I always go back to. Those cases that get reported to the Department of Human Services that then get cross-reported to us, and vice versa when we take those cases. As the kids start returning to school, those incidents being reported increases. And we always see kind of an influx as the school year starts. My plan to do that was to have a detective here to get a little bit of experience under her belt, to get some training, to be able to work on some significant cases, which she already has. She's partnered on an officer involved shooting up in Eugene. She's been able to go and work that case with some of the best investigators in Oregon. She's also worked on a couple other high profile cases with some of our partner agencies already. So we're also partnering with Kids First, who came here several months ago and gave a presentation to council. They're sponsoring some training at no cost to us, again, because of our relationship and the partnership we formed with them. They're sending our detectives to some very high profile training to deal with child abuse, human trafficking, and things like that. So she's going to get some really, really high level training. And it's really important for us to do that because those cases are super complex. And like I said earlier, they're hard to work from patrol, but those are probably the majority of the cases. And then as we get things, that just need extensive follow-up, major assaults or, knocking on wood here. I don't want to jinx myself, so I'll stop at that right now, because if I start saying it, then something will happen. But there's a number of things that could probably run through your mind that we may or may not have to respond to as a police department. So, but yeah, that's the intent behind filling that position, and that's where we're at with it. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah,
We really appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Next is Human Resources.
And before we start, Mandy, we're getting up to 9 o'clock. Is council okay with extending past 9?
Are we okaying the extension of, I mean, I see 4 reports here. So,
Until 30 minutes.
Yeah. Excuse. So
are we extending until we're finished with the reports? Is that our plan, or? are
We'll
we-
do it in 30-minute increments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we approach, we need to. Hey, Mandy, thank you.
We'll talk fast. So good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mandy Beeler, and I serve as a Human Resources Manager for the city. I recently celebrated my 13th year here at the city on August 8th. So I've been serving in this community for just a little over a decade. Today, I'm here to provide you with an update on the Human Resources Department and to share insights into the key developments and achievements over the past year. And I'm going to use some humor, and if you don't get it, that's okay. Just bear with me. I am a diehard fan of The Office. My coworkers get really sick of hearing about it, but that's who I am. So if they don't land, that's all right. Many people wonder what HR really does. Some might think of HR as strict and flexible or even against employees. However, that's the opposite of a good HR. Next slide. Human Resources is dedicated to supporting and empowering employees while ensuring the organization runs smoothly and efficiently. HR also plays a crucial role in resolving conflicts and aligning the workforce with the organization's goals and values. Over the years, HR has undergone significant changes. When I first joined the city, HR duties were shared amongst department heads, administrative assistants, and the city manager. However, as personnel laws and regulations have expanded and our workforce has grown, HR now requires specialized expertise that can't be handled by department heads or supervisors alone. While HR is often seen as transactional, to be truly effective, HR needs to act as a transformational leader. HR is a vital partner to both employees and leaders, influencing our greatest asset, our people. In my role, I support all managers, employees, and department heads. And some of my responsibilities include recruiting and selection and onboarding and offboarding. And those are the 2 that I'm going to highlight tonight because there's just not enough time. But the other things that I handle are performance management, training and development, union relations, policy management, benefits and retirement administration, safeties and workers' compensation, leave administration. And the city is lucky to have 3 different types of protected leave due to our size. And then on top of that, we also have the American Disabilities Act that we comply with. So there's a lot within leave administration, leadership development, and then employee health and wellness. HR recently became a standalone department. During the budget process, the HR assistant and I developed a vision that we believe aligns perfectly with both the mission of HR and the city's overall goals. And so the vision for the Human Resources Department is to provide leadership and strategic human resources management that is responsive to the goals and needs of the cities and its workforce. The mission of HR is to address the diverse human resources needs of our workforce through effective consultation, guidance, and training. This chart illustrates, I know you guys like facts, so there's gonna be a lot of like charts and stuff in there, so I hope that's helpful. This chart illustrates our current employee population, which consists of 94 employees across 12 departments. The largest departments are Public Works and Police. Back in 2014, I pulled statistics and we averaged about 82 employees at that time. And at our peak, what I've seen the highest average is around 105 to 110, and that's when we hire seasonals. So we get a pretty large number of employees just during different times of the year. So recruitment is a significant part of my job and my workload. Posting a job opening is more complex than it seems and demands considerable time and effort. Since July 2023, I've managed 30 recruitment processes. Often this begins with updating or creating job descriptions. I collaborate with supervisors and department heads to ensure these descriptions are accurate. Since 2021, I've updated or created 30 job descriptions, and we have 51 positions currently. So the process, it could just look like an announcement that you see online, but there's a lot of time and effort that goes into the back end. And that's kind of just the start of the process. The chief talked a little bit about the police department and what that entails. And there's a little bit more extensive when it comes to that type of a position. But all applicants that are selected for any position, and if they're 18 or older, are required to do a criminal history check, and that's post-job offer. So they've been given a conditional job offer at that point. Certain positions have to do drug testing, so that's a safety sensitive type position. And then if you handle money, you get to do a credit history check. And so there's a lot on the back end that goes into that. Next slide. So every position requires a consistent and effective recruitment process. In 2022, I took on the responsibility of police recruiting, which was previously managed in the police department by the administrative assistant in that role. So I quickly discovered that recruiting for dispatchers and police officers involves a unique multi-step process. The state of Oregon and the Department of Public Safety and Training Standards set strict standards and requirements that must be followed. Since I was new to this process, I conducted extensive research. I reached out to partners at DPSST, different HR contacts with cities around us. And then once the chief came on, I collaborated with him to refine our approach. I also began tracking applicants that wasn't done previously for the police department. The chart illustrates the breakdown of applications received since around July or August of 2022. And we've worked diligently to present a professional recruitment process. It's ever changing. It's completely, changed since I first started, but we believe we're at a good point right now. We've increased our marketing efforts. You can see there our captain and then one of our officers. We got to go to the University of Oregon to a recruitment fair. It was a great opportunity to chat with some potential applicants. From these recruitment efforts, we've conducted 105 interviews since July of 2023. You can see kind of the peaks. It looks like I didn't do anything in July of this year, but I'm sure there was a lot else going on at that time. And then we also have interviews coming up on Wednesday for the sergeant process. That's a pretty exciting full day process that's gonna occur. So these numbers, when you put it out on paper, to me, it sounds like a lot. Since July of 2023, we've worked to hire 36 employees. If you put that in perspective to our ratio of 94 current employees, that's a large number. It feels like I'm doing a lot of onboarding at this point. I'm hoping that that slows down and we start to get some retention in those different areas. That does include seasonals and interns. So some years we hire six interns or seasonals just in the public works, and then some planning interns and that sort of a thing. So, and then our golf course, we also employ some seasonal employees. Okay, so onboarding. This is my onboarding checklist that I have at this time. When I was hired, I didn't experience an onboarding at all. I had no orientation. I didn't understand any of my benefits. I found out about my retirement after I had been employed for 6 months and PERS had started to come out of my paycheck. And I was really curious about what PERS is, and it's pretty complex, but I've learned a lot since then. So I work really hard to do a thorough onboarding process that starts with just a 1-hour session with them. And then I reach out to them after they're hired if they have questions. We do a pretty comprehensive process with benefits and explaining what types of benefits you have. We do a benefits fair every other year as well, which is a really good opportunity for employees to understand retirement is a big thing that we try to educate employees, but they have lots of other things with medical and dental and vision, and then down to PTO and time off and that sort of thing. And we try to do a really good job of helping applicants or new employees to understand what they have offered. We started this out several years ago with just doing onboarding sessions with full-time employees. And since then, we have a large number of part-time employees. And so we do onboarding sessions with them as well. And every employee that comes onto the city has standardized training on ethics and sexual harassment, and then other trainings that may be related to their position, like bloodborne pathogens, those types of exposures, but they all receive that from the get-go. And then annually, those things are done as well. We try to do some of those in person, like harassment training. We try to do that in person. It seems like it's a little more effective. So much like onboarding, offboarding requires multiple steps. And this chart shows employee separations from July 2023 to current. Much like most employers across the country, we're facing challenges associated with a really competitive market. We can see, I don't have the reasons or the locations that some people resigned and went to other locations, but every employer around Oregon is competing for employees, and that's kind of part of the issue there. So you can see that 46 employees have been offboarded since July of 2023. And then that's my little offboarding checklist. It's a little less expensive to separate employment, but there is a process that's followed each time. And HR is involved in every employee separation. So accomplishments. So the biggest accomplishment within the last year is updating the employee handbook. It wasn't updated since probably 20 years. It hadn't done a full update. And I believe it was on a typewriter when it was done. Memos had been added to it, so it had been updated, but it hadn't been done in its entirety. So that was a large accomplishment. Updated the employee evaluation form. We streamlined the police department's recruitment process. I handle workers' comp, so I processed 10 claims or injuries. We have a really low injury rate, so we do a really good job of safety, and that's a large priority for us. 20 protected leaves, talked about that a little bit, but and then handled recruitment and new hires. Additionally, I received my executive leadership certificate through the Public Sector Human Resources Association in 2023, so I worked on that. And then goals. So every year the employee handbook should be updated in some capacity. So that's a goal of mine, working on doing that this winter. I'd love to create a wellness committee. That was something we had going for the city pre-pandemic. It fizzled whenever my job kind of changed throughout the pandemic. But that's something that I think is important for the city. Hold a benefits fair, and then tying in with the wellness committee, we have grant money available to us through our insurance provider. So we could be partnering with them to do help employees with different wellness activities. So some of the ideas that have came are like a garden, an employee gardening space, that sort of a thing. But we could get money to fund some of those ideas. Continuously updating job descriptions. And I hope to create an evaluation form for our supervisory or leadership staff. Work on creating an employee recognition process, and then get into 2024-25 and get some sort of electronic application process going. I think that's it. You guys have any questions?
Have questions? Councilor Meredith.
Looking back at the separation chart, is there are we competitive with our wages? Would that be a major source of resignation, or are there other reasons connected? Any
So-
patterns?
Yeah, so I just started doing consistent exit interviews, just because of my workload. It hasn't been a consistent process. So we may get some information out of those exit interviews that could point us in some of the reasons why people are resigning. We do, during union negotiations, we do compensation studies to see how competitive we are. 2025 is a bargaining year, so we will review benefits, or we will review total compensation at that point. So we can check and see where we are competitive wise with different cities that are in comparable population to us. So I don't have current numbers on that, but it's done every 3 years.
Thank you.
Mhm. Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. Amanda, I just want to commend you for all the attention to these things, and you really have ushered in the present from the past in many ways. So, you know, I applaud the exit interviews, understanding what the culture is, and having a pulse on it and making sure it's a healthy culture. I think is vital. It's a lesson learned from our recent past. And so I just want to thank you for presenting and the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And the updates on employee evaluations, I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyone else? Thank you, Mandy.
you.
Right, and next is the community services and the community center.
There we go. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I wanted to start off with, before I start the presentation, on a fun fact about the Gibbs Building and the Community Center and Library. For those of you that were not here in 2000, I had one of our librarians, Mary Love, help me with some history on this. For those that you don't know, our building was once a Safeway. And then it was repurposed into a hospital rehab, and the city purchased it because of needing a new library. They'd outgrown their space in the Woodard Building on 6th Street. And the senior center was moved there, and the community center was expanded. The building was dedicated in July 28th, 2000. And donors were Centennial Bank, City of Cottage Grove, the Collins Foundation, Ford Family Foundation, Meyer Memorial Trust, Oregon Community Foundation, Doyle and Donna Shepherd, the Tykeson Foundation, the Woodard Family Foundation, Casey Woodard, Joy Woodard, and the Cottage Grove Community Foundation. There was a book brigade that happened, and looking at the numbers, there were 350 people that participated in that book brigade. And there were over 450 people that were present for that day. So it's my understanding, and Cindy could probably help me, I think that got national coverage. And I've actually talked to people that have moved our community, and they said we had to come and see a community that did that. And actually there are residents here that they saw that and they had to move to a community that did something like that. So I manage the community service department, and my staff member is Jessica Clark, who is community center. She is a community coordinator assistant. I've been with the city for 19 years as a public servant, and have really appreciated the privilege of being that. A lot of changes in that since I started in 2005. So the Community Service Department is a facility that is coordinating community programs sponsored by nonprofit, faith-based, and other organizations that address the needs of at-risk populations in the community and enhance volunteer opportunities for those served by the programs and for the community members to serve. The Community Center strives to provide a variety of affordable, accessible, and well-maintained facilities for public and private use. The community center works to support the needs of the community for recreational, cultural, and social opportunities for all ages and abilities. Our tenants are the Genealogy Society, South Valley Athletics, the Cottage Grove Senior Center, Senior Meals on Wheels, and Senior and Disability Services. The community center building management is, we support building tenants, ensure safety and security, cleanliness, maintenance, and repairs of the building and its occupants, and promote and develop programs and activities. Next slide. Okay. I see that. All right. So we put together a slide as far as the facility rentals, and you can see that the majority of the groups are nonprofit and civic groups. We've had an increase from last year of 20% on room rentals, which I was really happy to see. Jessica has improved some exposure and by taking pictures and putting them on our website about what the building space looks like, what things are available to people to rent the space. So she's kind of brought us into the next level of things. One of the things this last year was Red Cross, when they came in and managed the warming center, they complimented us on how clean the community center was in the bathrooms, and they travel worldwide. So that was a really nice compliment that I shared with our janitorial staff, because they work very hard. We work as a team to keep everything going, and that just represents the quality of staff there. Next slide. So I'm also a volunteer coordinator for the city, and that's city departments, and also some other things that we're managing. This year, we worked on a cleanup of the 12th Street site, which I I didn't put a call out to volunteers. I asked volunteers to help that I knew that wouldn't have judgment about what they were picking up. We had 11 volunteers with 30 hours. We had a volunteer that is helping with the planting of the welcome signs and watering every single day, deadheading plants. And the donations for those flowers came from Log House Plants and from Shady Oaks, which was really nice. We also are continuing to run the mobile shower program, and the hours for that this year were 603.67. There was a total of 8 volunteers. We have 3 volunteers that are actually running that program now. They do setup, they do take down. We just manage supplies and help them as needed. We also are doing the rapid access network when there's community needs, and it might be a bicycle for somebody who needs to get back and forth to work. It might be a walker for someone that is really struggling with walking. The RAN program was actually able to get a really nice walker for someone. So there's a number of things. I mean, that's been amazing to have that. That's free to us. And that was started by the 15th Night program. And they're doing that for free for the city. And they're wanting to honor that with us. And then we ran, I don't have the volunteer hours for the warming center that was here or a lot of them from Red Cross. We were just so busy with everything that I didn't think to take down volunteer hours at that time. Everybody was in such work mode. But we did have volunteers for a cooling center. And I was really pleased to see that during a holiday weekend, 4th of July, we had 13 volunteers, and many of them I'd never seen before. So we had a call out for that, and I was really impressed with that. So it was nice to see on a holiday weekend that many people help us. So, so we had the hourly value for a volunteer is nationally $33.49. And with our totals, as far as our volunteers, that comes to a total of $22,300 in volunteer hours this year. I'd like to see that increase. So I kind of discussed our mobile shower program, and the 3 volunteers that are helping with that every Wednesday from 11 to 3 are Christina Moen, Jeannie Peterson, and Roberta West, who was at one time a user of the mobile showers and is now in housing. The community center the community service department puts together the South Main Resource Guide, and every year its information grows. We've printed 2,500 copies this year, and 430 resources are verified annually. That's also been digitized, so updates are digitized yearly. I'm also looking at approaching another group to see if they might be interested in helping us support that, so the city's not paying for that. And I should be getting a response pretty soon from that. Slide. I'd like to thank Faye and whichever staff has helped out to get the grant that he secured recently for the community center and library as one of 6 locations for the community resilience hub. I think it's really important that we have that, and it's an ideal location at the community center because we do have showers and the room space. And what we do is, if people are booked with rentals, we'll have to call everyone that has rentals for that space if there's an emergency, and everybody's been really good about letting us use that. So past emergencies that we've worked on: cooling center, it's been a smoke respite center, Red Cross and emergency shelter for flooding and ice storm, and a wildfire donation drop deposit. Next slide. So the importance of a community center. I mean, I think we all kind of understand that, a multipurpose building like this, and with everything that's housed there, we have children that have activities, whether it's at the library or South LA Athletics. Generational, where you're seeing elders play and play ping pong or have activities with elders. I think it's real important because a lot of kids don't even have grandchildren or grandparents around. So it's a healthy place for all community members to be, and I think it's one of the gems of our community. So next page. Here's some pictures that Jessica took of, and these are not staged. These are really happening at our community center. So we've got a wood carving and painting group that comes in on Thursdays. In the afternoon, there's ping pong, which gets pretty rambunctious sometimes, and it's been fun to watch retired people and then kids coming into play. Some exercise classes. Many people from other areas come and use our space, whether it's for insurance or classes that they're offering. Or in the past, we've had at-home schooling. They'll do testing there. And this is kind of a central location off of I-5. So it's been convenient for people. It's been really fun to watch the kids, all the activities this summer. We've had a lot of kids enjoy things. So I think that you were handed out, I wanted to give you an idea with names and stuff, the types of groups that are using our space. I think that was handed out to you. I've also got a handout for anyone that would like it about the mobile crisis services in Lane County that Corey mentioned to us, which we're really happy to have help us when we have a crisis, because oftentimes it's not a police matter. And so we're pretty excited to have that. Do you have a copy of that so you can use? Yeah, I don't know the name. Can you pass that around? And maybe people in the staff might like that too. So some of the highlights this year has been for me to watch the response at the warming shelter at City Hall and community come together. I was actually told by the administrator at the hospital that we saved lives. And the community came together when our most vulnerable community members were in need. I also highlighted the cooling center and how happy I was to see the amount of volunteers. One of the things that I'm working on, South Lane Mental Health, and Alec Canino, the executive director, has taken the lead on creating a new group, and it's going to be called the Resiliency Collective, that will help to build and develop resources and share community resources continue building networks and community partners. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also working to develop and continue to grow the volunteer distribution list, which is around 200 people at this time. And that is used for volunteer opportunities within the city as well as community members and nonprofits. So if someone comes in that we don't have a volunteer opportunity for, I've been known to call the Chamber of Commerce, the Senior Center, summer meal programs at the high school to see if they have any need and send people on in that way. I'm also wanting to start hanging exhibits up at the library or at the community center. We have an art gallery that we didn't have any art put up because of roof leaks, and we're at a point where we're going to start doing that again. So I've had some people reach out wanting to have things put up. I'm also looking forward to developing a new volunteer manual and volunteer application with Mandy. Looking to develop more classes at the community center, and specifically would love to find somebody to, I'm hearing people are wanting to have Tai Chi classes, and there was a new instructor last week that came in that was interested in doing some art classes, and she's moved here from Monmouth, so we'll be in talks with her. I've also reached out to AARP safe driving classes, which were very regular at the community center before COVID. And they're coming down this week to visit us, and they're going to start those classes again. That's really valuable for seniors that take that class because that can save money on their insurance. So, and again, just the mobile crisis, really very happy to have mobile crisis come in. Are there any questions?
Councilor Urban.
Yeah, thank you for being here for the presentation. I think most of my questions kind of surround around the volunteer process. Could you describe what it, if someone's coming in new to the community, what would they need to do? Who do they need to connect with? And it sounds like there's connections between the different organizations, but would you recommend they come to you first?
Yes. And so they'll fill out a volunteer application that we need to update. So we're working on that because there's, I think it's been the same one for 19 years. So then we need to do some updates. So,
And you were talking about the volunteer call out. You do that. What kind of channels are you currently using for calling for volunteers?
Well, what I do is I have a distribution list. And so I have recruited through Friday Update, information out in the paper around the Grove has put some things in there, and I just want to grow that, continue to grow that. And so that will be, people will sign up for that list, and then I'll send out information about the volunteer opportunity. They don't have to respond to it unless they're interested. And I tell groups that are giving me information on volunteer opportunities to be very specific about what their needs are. And that makes it, I think what I've seen is that people will respond better to that if they know, how many people and then the shifts, instead of just, we need 50 volunteers. If they can get more specific with things, I think more people will volunteer. And what I found is people usually volunteer if you ask them. So,
and then my last question is, I don't even think I've ever been to what used to be the warming pool or the water aerobics pool. Clearly, I don't even remember the name of it. Was it the?
It was a
therapy. The therapy pool.
Yeah.
What has that's all been deconstructed? What's in that space now? What's its utilization?
Genealogy is now in that space. I was a pool manager and recruited for many years with that. So it was 14 years that was there. And then we had a number of repairs that were going to need to happen. The building itself was really never made to have a pool. And Donna Shepard, because that had been medical rehab, one of her stipulations, I understand, was when she was going to donate money, she said, you need to keep the therapy pool in there because it really helped my husband. So we honored that. And it was amazing. Just, and then what I did was I helped when the pool opened, their warm water pool, they put one in up at Doherty Pool. And so the classes that I had going, and at one time we had 33 classes a week, Monday through Saturday. So they transferred up there. And the warm water benefits were just amazing, the things that I witnessed. People with strokes that couldn't use their arm, that that were able to drive and, use their arms again. So it's pretty amazing what warm water can do. So do I miss it? I don't miss cleaning and putting chemicals in and tracking that every hour. But what I do miss is the people,
Did you ask that question?
No, well, I wonder what was going on there now. So
The
the
genealogies
genealogy-
now, they
Genealogies.
filled that in with rocks and concrete and whatever
Right.
else. And we've had people walk in looking for it. I'm like, no, it's no longer here.
Yeah.
It's
And
genealogy.
Then the last would be, I was thinking about the recurring thought about the tutoring, mentoring
Mhm.
need that we have in the community and
Mhm.
like the smart programmer equivalent. And who do people contact right now to get on the schedule? Is there room on the schedule? If, a new thing wants to start up, how would they get engaged?
Jessica handles all room scheduling, so they would need to call Jessica. They can call me and I can put a hold on it, but I've handed her the day-to-day as far as room rentals. So that's how that starts. And we've also got the Tyson room at the library that's free of charge for people, and a lot of people access that. So, small businesses, there's 2 rooms there up front when the library is open. And that's a great meeting space. It opens up, or there's a divide down the middle. So I just, just to express a little bit about some of the things that, I also work on with the unhoused population and at risk. The challenges, this last week, we had somebody that's stranded in the Walmart parking lot that was on their way to San Diego for a job, union carpenter with a 10-year-old child, and they're broke down, and it looks like it's possibly a transmission. So the woman walked with her child to the community center, and we've been able to help them through the trust fund with some gift cards for money for food. And then I have a community member who is helping them to try to figure out what it is that's wrong with their vehicle. And I don't want this person to become another unhoused individual in our community. So we have community partners that I'm able to call. And this gentleman in particular came in during the cooling center and offered any help he could give. He hadn't ever come in and talked with me before. And so those resources are invaluable. And I actually had to go over there and have a talk with the man who's the journeyman carpenter about, you've landed in Cottage Grove. It's a population of 11 and you don't have any resources to call, because that's one of the first things that I ask. Do you have anybody at home? What are you able to do? And they don't have any. And so I said, you need to get really clear on what you need, because I can't do that for you. So we're still working with them. And but that's just an example of one of the things that I work on. During the warming center, we had an elderly gentleman that got stranded in Cottage Grove. He was at the community center after Red Cross closed. The county came down. What we found out is he had some mental health issues, and his family, we let him call his family. They hadn't heard from him in a month. They thought he was in the Dakotas, and he ends up in Cottage Grove, Oregon. And with the help of the county, the family sent money for a bus ticket. The county came and picked him up to get him to the bus stop in Eugene, because it goes by us now. It doesn't stop here. So those are just a couple of the things that I've worked on. And the community resources that we have are just so important. Even though they're limited, we have some amazing community resources, and hoping to build more. Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
The buses go by us, they don't stop here anymore.
No.
Greyhound?
Yeah, Greyhound used to stop here. And now we have to take people to
When did
Eugene.
that stop?
That's been a number of years ago, but that's what we have to do. So. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. So. Thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much, Teresa.
Yep.
Well, Your Honor, it's about that time again. Can we extend for about another half hour, hopefully? Good, thank you. Finance and Middlefield Golf Course.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As you know, I'm Bert Likens. I'm the Finance Director. A fun fact is I started September 27th, 2004. So we're coming up on 20 years of being your finance person. I want to thank all of the other prisoners and department heads and managers that came before me, because they did a really great job of explaining how wonderful our city is, what all we can accomplish when we work together. And I think they've highlighted the best of what we do. And so thank you guys for doing that. Makes my presentation a little bit quicker for you. So the question becomes, what does the finance department do? Well, our main role is to support and work alongside all of the departments that you heard from. And we try to serve our community and those departments with exceptional customer service. It's not just the person that walks through the door that's our customer. My finance department likes to look at us as we serve the public works departments, we serve the police departments, anyone that has anything going on in the city. It's our role to help them accomplish that. So we do accounting. So we oversee accounting of all the financial management for the city, as well as we support the operations of the city. And this last year for 24-25, our current budget is $55,925,637. Of course, that includes transfers between departments. It includes transfers to debt service. It includes contingency amounts and unappropriated fund balances. But that's the money that the city legally appropriated to spend for fiscal year 24-25. Okay. Turn the page. But what else does the finance department do? We aren't just strictly accounting. So we have 4 part-time people that work in the finance department and 2 part-time, and then myself as a full-time as well. Our accounts payable department supports and pays for every single invoice that the city is responsible to pay. They're coded, they're processed weekly, so we pay timely to our vendors. I think that's something that we can be proud of, and that we aren't keeping our vendors waiting for their money. It's important to get them processed and paid for. We have a credit card system that all of the employees that need a credit card have one. And as those bills come due, you can only imagine what that might look like. We require receipts for every single transaction, and then it's approved at the various levels throughout the departments. Shelley Baird is our accounts payable person. Her schedule is from 6 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoons, Monday through Thursday, excuse me. Thursday she goes home at noon, and then Friday she has the day off. But we are able to process all of those payments within that time period. And the reason for the early schedule, you might ask, is so that she has some quiet time when we're not open that she can devote to getting that job accomplished. Our utility billing clerk, Jessica Racinos. We have approximately 4,000 or so utility accounts that are billed monthly. And then we also produce disconnect notices from anywhere from 200 to 400, depending on people that have paid their or not paid their bills. And then we also this last year implemented what we call the express bill pay process. So people can have apps on their phone, make payments automatically through that process. Call us and we take payments over the phone with credit cards. None of the information, of course, is stored at City Hall. It's all through the third party. So we meet PCI compliance. What's been interesting this last year is with the installation of our utility meters, the smart meters, is that we now have a very good handle on leak detection. And we get notices that come through Jessica as far as abnormal use of your water. And so sometimes the challenge is convincing our customer that they actually have a leak. So she spends quite a bit of time on the phone reaching out to all of the customers that leak notice comes in on, to see if it's something that they're actually using, or if maybe they have a leak in their irrigation that they're not even aware of. Municipal court falls under the purview of finance, and Michelle Roundsville is our court clerk. And I like to think of her as our court administrator. Without Michelle, we wouldn't probably be able to hold court on a weekly or 2 times a month basis. Michelle has been with us probably the longest within our department of 9 years, I believe. So we appreciate all of her efforts. As you can see, we process all of the different violations from city ordinance to traffic laws in municipal court. There's also something that I feel is very important through the court is restitution. So if someone has been harmed and we have the ability to require the defendant to pay that restitution, it's the first money in, first money out back to pay for that restitution that was adjudicated for that person. Our accounting tech is a full-time position. She performs, she being Dana Benner, performs our accounts receivables, reconciles bank and credit card statements. She performs our collections, helps in the preparation of the budget document. We have cash management that has to occur so that we make sure that every week when we're paying our bills, we have money in the bank to do that, as well as payroll requirements to meet. And it can be changing. All of the people that work in the finance department also can perform the same duties as a finance clerk. So they all answer the phone, they all take payments, they all welcome in customers at the counter. It's kind of a first person frontline position. You never know what kind of question you're going to get when someone steps up to that counter. It might be, what's the phone number for DMV? Or where's a good place to eat? Or do you have a covered bridge tour map? So it varies daily on what the staff is expected to deal with. We also, of course, take money over the counter. That can be a credit card. It can be an ACH transaction, and we actually still take cash. So then we're responsible for getting that to the bank on a daily basis. They make my job a whole lot easier. And that under the direction of the budget officer, which is the city manager, I'm responsible for putting together the budget document and working with all of the different department heads and supervisors that have input into that budget and bringing forth a document that Mike and I can sit down and work towards balancing and making sure that we're meeting state and local laws and requirements for that budget. The other part of budgeting is doing the day-to-day, what I want to call it. I want the day-to-day conformance to those budget laws. So when you have a budget resolution that comes to you, it's because something occurred that is outside of our current budget that we need to address to become legal and make sure that we're following state law. That can be a budget resolution transfer from a contingency. It can mean that we had to advertise a supplemental budget because of an amount that was received that we need to be able to expend, just following that Oregon budget law. Audit is another responsibility that I have. We work with an outside auditing firm, and it's the annual preparation of the financial statements. We provide them information. They come and actually spend about a 4-day period with our department reviewing records, and then it's a time frame of probably a couple of months that they actually dig in, ask more questions, interview employees, interview management staff, making sure that what's reflected is accurate. My other duties include managing all of the operations of the finance department, and I have the distinct pleasure of overseeing Middlefield Golf Course Pro Shop. So that's a fun part of the job. We ensure that we're in compliance with city policies and procedures, and we prepare analytical reports, oversee city investments and management of debt. And by management of debt, it's debt issuance, either loans or bonds, and then making sure that those debt payment requirements get met. So a couple of the things that we've been working towards, we're trying to always keep up with what's happening in the financial environment and implementing software solutions because our staff is so limited. It's important to be able to do those things. Paycom is the most recent thing that we're working towards for payroll. We're implementing a outsourced firm to actually process our payroll. And that should be launching by September 20th with our first paychecks being processed through Paycom. Today, the employees were notified of that change and we'll be providing training to them on how to use it. It will actually be a handheld app on your phone that you can clock in with, clock out, and then manage all sorts of aspects about your pay, including being able to see your paycheck before it's actually issued to you and being able to approve that paycheck and make some changes if, or at least bring it to our attention so that we can make changes before the check is actually issued. Audit preparation is underway. We are behind in that we haven't got the 22-23 audit done yet. It's a primary goal of the department to get accomplished. And we'll be doing the 23-24 audit at the same time. US Bank Instant Card. So I talked earlier about every employee that needs a credit card has one. This is a new program that's being launched that we will be able to actually issue a virtual credit card to an employee. Say you only go to a conference once a year, you need to book your motel, you need to pay for your food while you're gone. We can actually issue you a credit card instantly. Could be good for a set period of time. So if you're going to be gone for a week, we issue it on the 1st. It's no longer available to you on the 7th. Say you're there and you've had an emergency, I need to up the credit limit. That happens instantaneously. So I think it'll be very beneficial to our employees as we move forward. Waterworth. We're just now implementing a long-term financial model to be able to do some revenue requirement analysis so that we'll be bringing to the council a 5-year plan that shows where you're at, where you want to get to, and what that looks like. So stay tuned for that. We're starting implementation. They'll be taking our information September 3rd. Sorry, but I'm out of breath because of my health issues, so I apologize. So in a nutshell, we were tasked to give you 5 or 6 slides. So I accomplished that, but the reality is that there's so much variety within my department. It depends on what Public Works is doing. It depends on what community development is doing. That new project that we are going to buy this piece of property, that sets in a whole new focus for the department for a period of time. So know that it's our job is to support everything that's going to happen within the city and make it happen for you. So there's my contact information if you had questions that can't be answered tonight. So I apologize.
I was going to suggest that I know we have a couple more reports. Did you already go through?
No, I need to do the middle.
Maybe we delay this one.
And it's fairly simple if you want me to finish up.
good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
sorry. With my stomach condition, it's hard for me to breathe. So I apologize. So the Pro Shop staff, I'm going to move right into it for you. The Pro Shop staff consists of 1 full-time Pro Shop manager, 3 part-time Pro Shop assistants, one of which is going to be returning to school at the end of September. And we just lost Cassidy Petzel, who's going back to George Fox College, but they were a delight and a pleasure to have with us this year. And then we have 2 part-time cart attendants that are in high school. So that is more of a seasonal position as well. And like I said earlier, it's my pleasure to have the oversight of the Pro Shop operations as a responsibility finance director. There's not too many finance directors in Oregon that have the ability to, or have the pleasure of managing a Pro Shop. The golf course is open for tea times from 7 till 7. So it's a 12-hour day for our employees. And we're open 7 days a week, including most holidays. We're currently in the process of adding a full-time position at the Pro Shop and have the position filled within the next 2 to 3 weeks is our hope, but we know that we have to provide it to the union, get approval as it's a new full-time position. I know you're all aware that we purchased this golf course with the intent of land deploying effluent. We've been very successful with that. That was purchased in 2006, and our last payment is due 9/15 of 2026. So we're almost at the finish line. The original loan was $850,000. And then we bought additional property that we just sold this fiscal year and reap the benefits from that. And we'll be investing some of that money back into the course. And the beautiful photo was taken by Faye. Our revenue estimates for this year. So you can see how it's broken down there, but we're estimating a total revenue of $664,940. And in the first 2 months of this fiscal year, 7/1 through 8/25, we have receipts totaling $198,000, which is approximately 30% of that budget. So we're on track and actually exceeding our expectations at this point. And in the future, we were able to replace the point of sale system that was in place when we purchased it in 2006, just this last year. We've been trained with our staff and it's operating very well for us. We are still in the collection of information mode. So as we get our golfers, we take phone numbers, emails, and we'll soon be able to send them promotional offers. Just, hey, it's slow at the course this afternoon. If you want to come on out, please join us. Those sorts of promotions. We're also going to be turning on our online tee time so that the customer can actually make their own tee time, reserve their cart. It keeps track of the availability of carts, which we just received 10 new ones, which is going to help that bottom line revenue. The more carts we have to rent, the more money we can make. This year we had several tournaments and they were very well attended. And our hope is in the future to recognize some more income and supply beverages and snacks to those tournament attendees and make it easier for them to enjoy the course without having to come into the pro shop. Also, staff is very excited about the physical improvements that are going to be made to the course, and that we'll be having a staging area where the golf carts can park differently. The rhododendrons have been removed but replanted, hopefully. And so there's lots of good things to come. So not only are we continuing to land apply that effluent, but we've become a destination for Cottage Grove. And we're very proud of it. So thank you. Are there any questions? I can catch my breath now.
I think we're good, Bert. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Counselor Merryday.
Do you ever sleep?
Yes, I do. There are times that I thank my middle daughter, who was a night owl and had kept me awake from birth until college. And so I'm used to late nights and early mornings. So I'm typically on scene around 6 in the morning, and at least if not here, it's at the golf course. And so I enjoy my job very, very much. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you for all you do.
We appreciate your dedication, Bert. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Your Honor. Again, that would conclude the reports from department directors. And again, I want to give you guys all a huge thank you. I really appreciate the fact that there's a ton of work that went into these and presentations. And so thank you for doing this. I think this is been a great opportunity to inform the council and also the community as to what you guys do on a daily basis. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to give you a very quick update on our transition for the shelters for the unhoused in the community, and just kind of let you know what's going on. So just jump right into it. As we've talked about before, we had two simple, very straightforward goals that we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to clean up the 12th Street and Douglas shelter sites, and we wanted to transition to a single 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shelter and provide a safe, secure place for folks to spend the night. The transition plan to a single shelter. We started out by communicating with and posting at the Douglas and 12th Street shelters. We provided a 2-week notice, a 1-week notice, and a 72-hour notice. It's my understanding that the city was only required to provide a 72-hour notice. So we felt like we were providing additional time for folks, letting them know what we were going to be transitioning to. We've prepared the temporary Lulu site, both physically and administratively. And last Thursday, August 22nd, was our actual transition day. So speaking of the transition day, we've transitioned now from the Douglas and 12th Street shelters to a temporary 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Shelter at the Lulu site. We're closing the Douglas shelter and the 12th Street shelters. And our transition plan next steps are to clean up Douglas and 12th Street. And I think we've made some incredible progress today on cleaning up the Douglas site. We're moving on to the 12th Street site. We're preparing the 12th Street site to be the 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Again, I stress that the Lulu site is temporary until we're able to transition to the 12th Street site, and then we'll reestablish the Lulu site as a dog park. So where we sit today. Well, we have mothballed the 99 shelter. We're cleaning up and closing the Douglas shelter. We're cleaning up the 12th Street shelter and transitioning it to a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And initially, we're staffing it by a private security firm. And finally, just a bit of a reality check, guys. This is far from a perfect solution. I mean, this is a work in progress. It's taken 3 years for the city to get to this point, and it's going to take us some time to continue to move forward. And most of all, I want to be very realistic and intellectually honest about city staff's bandwidth. I think the presentation you got from the police department this evening and from Public Works your last meeting, it really demonstrates the level of work that these departments are doing. So, we're taking on additional duties, but understand that our bandwidth is not unlimited. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you. That could conclude my report, Your Honor.
All right. Well, I see Carrie is on the phone and I'm not going to forget you this time. So do you have anything you would like to say?
That's hysterical. I'm noticing that there's my camera. Thank you for calling on me. I actually have nothing to report. I have obviously been doing some work behind the scenes, but nothing that I need to bring to the council's attention at this time, except that I was born and raised, I was raised from an early age in the Dalles, and I'm going to have to go back and see those murals.
They're beautiful. All right. Well, thank you, Carrie.
All right.
Well,
Thanks.
there is nothing else. This meeting is now adjourned.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.